Okay. I'm just going to pull up the chat myself. Oh boy. Okay, we got a couple of people coming in.
Cool as.
Okay, just for everyone watching, or listening rather, if just let me know if the stream sounds like it's lagging or tripping out. If anything weird is popping up or does pop up, just let me know. But that being said, there's nothing to say we need to have this be dead air. So I guess in terms of Concord stuff, where are you at?
Well, I am incredibly excited to be coming back to Concord. I NPC, of course, but I took the last game off for medical reasons, but I'm nowhere near prepared. I have to take, I think 4 or 5 big plastic bags and also two giant crates of kit. I end up using probably about 50% of it, 60% of it, but I love having it all ready to go. I'm just finishing off the last of my cleaning and washing from Shadow World, which wasn't too long ago. But I'm very, very excited. I'm fully expecting, however, to get at least a couple of messages from people still asking for assistance with character creation, which I'm happy to do. Honestly, it brings me great joy to know that I've helped someone ease into the game, especially with brand new players who haven't tried LARP before. How about yourself?
More or less the same. Just very much like the energy and vibe of like, no, I'm not ready. I got like so many other things that I should have done that I haven't done that I probably should do. Yep. I mean, all my gear's clean. So that's something. That being said, I don't have that much gear anyway.
Look, you're doing better than me. I inevitably put it all off to last second of the day before, and then I frantically run around desperately trying to find my kit, and often realizing that I forgot to wash or clean something and doing a last minute load and having to get it dried or something. But it all gets there in the end, and I'm very glad that I now have a slightly bigger car. Still a hatchback, but it's a 4-door, which gives me a bit better go at squeezing everything in. I'm very lucky that my partner doesn't bring along very much, so they don't really mind me packing the car 3/4 full of my junk.
Alright, this is cool. So from Concord LARP in chat, apparently the week of game, has been made a public holiday.
I just saw that. Hey, look, I'm not much of a monarchist, so if I can just say that I'm very glad that the monarch has given us something that I can actually appreciate for a change. Mm-hmm. A Thursday off before game gives me less chance to panic at night and actually get my stuff ready before, because I'm planning on heading down on the Friday to help the ST team NPC team to do setting up.
That makes sense.
But it's good. Gives you a chance to do all your shopping you can't do in Boddington. And as a reminder, if you got to do grocery shopping, do it in Boddington. You can make Boddington really happy that us LARPers are around, because we rely on their goodwill.
Indeed, I'm gonna 100% agree with that. Also, like especially all the services around Boddington then end up like vending, working, like money coming in through because of the LARPs that happen down in Boddington. All of them are good. They're all worth the money, 100%.
Definitely. I thoroughly recommend the Bitching Bakery, because my god, their cookies and the like are absolutely decadent. I thoroughly recommend you give them a try, and considering they're doing deliveries, that makes it even better, honestly.
Right, we'll just wait until we're about 10 minutes in, and then we'll get everything properly fired off.
Not a problem.
Oh boy. I'm very happy to get into Concord. I feel like I'm at the point now, more than I think I've ever been, like when I was doing War Hearts and War Hearts Ganglands. Like, I feel more comfortable and prepared than I have ever doing LARP prior for this coming summit.
I gotta say, I've been eagerly awaiting this Concord, because Concord really feels like the game that I wanted when I first started LARPing, like 6 years ago, I think, 7 years ago. Like I started in the very last game of Gecko, which is a very long time ago, and off that I imagined just a wonderful game with people from different nations all joined together with like a cause that they all wanted to succeed at. But underneath that cause, you had lots of different individual goals. You had political ambitions. You had disagreements in culture and religion. You had enemies which were not only like threatening and worrying, but legitimately terrifying when you drill down into them. And God, the religion, I could talk for hours just purely on the religion alone. I have never seen in any kind of game, any setting, books, video games, movies, RPG settings, a religion which is so well created. I love the spheres, and I love their approach to themes which could be incredibly hard to implement. Anarch and Panoply are both my two favorite spheres, and it's mostly because the idea of creating a god or a religion or a set of beliefs pursuing ambition and becoming like the best version of yourself, which twins into greed, that's just amazing. A positive version of greed, a positive version of ambition, that's so cool. And Anarch, the idea of chaos and upsetting the order for the greater good, the idea of making certain that stratified static systems which tend towards corruption are challenged to make them stronger and better. Just chef kiss.
I mean,
beautiful.
We can then go into like the third sphere that really could be seen as kind of challenging, sort of, is being Lumos, very much being the personal truth rather than the objective truth that Starly would bring forward, and that being a thing of like encouraging you, because part of the sphere, that sphere's path is encouraging you to still practice self-reflection, which again, from a growth perspective, is also super awesome.
Absolutely, and I'm really stoked in the way that in a lot of different ways, both with the nations, cultures, and the spheres, there could have been a tendency to go towards dark places and dark ways of thinking, but instead it's very much pushed towards benevolence and the idea that, yeah, sure, you can take things to a dark place, but that's not necessarily the status quo. Like, Lumos is so easy to take into a dark place with personal truths. Like, every single zealot who's done terrible things could easily be Lumos, right? Your personal truth. I'm doing this for the greater good. But that's not how it comes across if you read about Lumos in the almanac or even the wiki. So yeah, I really appreciate the religion system. I really appreciate how I've done things, and I just like that there is that tension between different spheres. But like, to me, the biggest tension between any spheres is definitely Lumos and Stalia. That idea that stamp out untruth wherever you find it, and if you can uncover and share one single truth, it's a life well lived. Whereas Lumos is, spread your personal truth and stand up for your personal truth and use it to become a light in the shining darkness. It's two very interesting philosophies.
Agree entirely. The spheres have definitely been, it's also for myself, it's been a really interesting challenge, because I've personally very much made it the choice of, I will play a character that is going to follow them all. Obviously, mechanically, I can't really follow them all. Not all at once, mechanically, at the very least. But I guess that idea that all the spheres have good life lessons that you can learn from, and you can follow them all easily enough if you can find a way to do so. It's not easy. It has not been easy at all. I've had to do a lot of mental gymnastics to get myself to
Well,
a
you
point
could-
of following them all.
as I said to you in character, like 2 games ago, gotta be careful. It's striding the line of heresy. It's one of the things I like about the spheres, the idea that you can absolutely choose to be a heretic or an atheist, even, just not care about it at all. But as far as we can see, we have proof that when somebody dies, their spirit goes into the void and then drifts towards the sphere that they've been living their life to. And if it goes to that sphere, you are then reborn. And to be honest, in helping people create characters, I've had a bunch of people choose to be heretics in different ways. Some to lesser extents, like, hey, I just don't really care about the spheres. I'll pay lip service, but that's about it. And others very heretical with interpretations of the spheres, which are just, if somebody finds out about it, like, there will be an inquisition called immediately. And I love those different flavors, and it's a choice. It can be a really fun choice, because, like, what's more fun than having a secret? And what's more fun than, like, getting to trust someone and letting them in on that? And then you've got a lovely little bit of role play. Like, what happens if you have a close friend at game, someone who saved your life, someone who you trust, and then they tell you, hey, look, actually, I don't believe in the spheres. Or, hey, look, I think, God, I don't know, necromancy could be a really useful thing. Like, who cares if people think it's wrong? If there are souls trapped between the spheres, why not use them to animate corpses and farm our farms? Like, it's interesting ideas, or even just like small heresies. Like in the very first game, you had the players come along who claimed they were from Arcadian and they were just as brave as warriors who thought. And that's up to the players to decide whether you can still be Arcadian and you can be Arcadian by being a player. And personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Or alternatively, which worked out very badly for the Concord, the followers of Grain and Grail, who said they were followers of Panoply, but they were farmers, and their philosophy was that you can be a follower of Panoply and still be a farmer, in that you are trying to be the best farmer you can, and then as the best farmer you can provide to other people. And they would literally travel in groups and help other people's farms out. And there was no Inquisition called. There was no investigation into them. A bunch of people said, yes, come to my farm or come to my wilderness and help me. And turns out it was a cult set up by the Zekatal. So I do enjoy the idea of heresy as an idea. And it can be done by players, it can be done by NPCs, and people just need to keep their eyes very open.
I agree entirely. It's so, the fact that the team have put this machine together, they've hit the go button and they've just let the cogs spin, and they've naturally, like, bar a couple of, like, the team needs to step in, like, for example, like bringing out the Concordian Accords, or the Constitution rather, and have it be a, like, this is both an in-game document and an out-of-game document. It just says a, like, we're saying no because it goes against the game itself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like that's been that's been needed to be enforced all too much.
Look, it's all well and good saying that everything is decided by the players, but absolutely storytellers have to frame it. Because if you don't give some kinds of guidelines, things go out of control very quickly. But I think the player base in general has been handling things very well and has been investing in them. But positive and negative consequences, certainly in the last Winds of the World, I think will further encourage people to follow up and stuff, to reply to letters if I get them, to not just accept things at face value, and to get involved if things seem important.
Absolutely.
Okay, we are almost 20 minutes in. Do we want to make a start?
Indeed. Just updating one thing very quickly.
Not a problem.
Okay. So, welcome everybody to episode 3 of Wanderer's Guide to Esterra, a live Concord LARP audio podcast. And yes, that name is still a mouthful. No, I'm not going to change it because it's accurate. Today I'm going to be joined by whom I consider a very good friend, and a friend to really the entire LARP community as a whole, the lovely and always ready to help Stuart Wallace.
Thank you very much, and what a kind introduction it is. Yeah, I'm happy to help, and honestly, like, that is legit. I'm more than happy to help with character creation. I'm more than happy to help with advice. Shoot me a message. I can't guarantee I'll always say yes, but I can always guarantee I will listen.
It's more than fair. Alright, so today, as per advertised, we are going to be going over new players getting into LARP by way of Concord, and Concord character creation. Different elements we are in. So, if you yourself are new, and you're a bit lost, you don't really, a lot of aspects you still don't really have figured out a whole lot, hopefully this will help. A few bookkeeping things right at the top. We are real close to game. We're about a couple weeks out at this point. Character submissions close in 1 week. So this is the last week you have to get your character in and done. In addition, the ticket prices for full PC tickets have gone up to $160. That happened as of Thursday this week. So if you still haven't paid your ticket, money's gone up now. And if you haven't submitted your character, do that. That's to myself as well. I really need to submit my character.
Come on!
We're
just doing a podcast about character creation. You haven't put in your submission for your updates?
Look. I have a lot of the abilities I already want. I have a single XP, and I still don't know where I want to put it.
Well, hey, look, maybe by the end of today's podcast, you'll have an idea, right?
That would be great. Okay, so, any of the bookkeeping things I think I've missed? Right, I guess as another reminder, the other reminders are coming up for this as well. This summit is on different days to what has been prior. Instead of running from the Friday to the Sunday, it is running the Saturday to the Monday, because it is a long weekend and public holiday. So it's easier to shift things up a day a bit. Game in is still going to be in the afternoon to the evening, and game out will likely still be of the Monday, still likely in mid to late afternoon. But as with all summits prior, any listed time that it says this is when game will end, it could be before that, it could be after. It's just the nature of the thing. But if you do need to leave by a certain time, don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. If you have to leave, you have to leave. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Everything is going to be fine.
It is worth mentioning, however, times when vehicles are allowed on field are limited. So you might end up needing to hoist your stuff back yourself. So that is something that probably does need mentioning.
Absolutely. Make sure you read the event guide and read it thoroughly and carefully, whether you are a new player or veteran. There are things that veteran players are still... There are rules that they are still breaking, as I have discovered and I have made known more so to the public. One of them, in particular, I will mention now. If you are still using hollow glass bottles or potion bottles and they are not filled with resin, do not bring them. They are not permitted on site. Do not bring them. Use plastic. Use anything that isn't hollow glass, please. Unless you're going to fill it with resin. Again, this is in the event guide for both this summit, and it was in the event guide for the prior summit. I checked them both to make sure it was there. It is. Yeah, I very much am doing this as heavy as I am, because I got handed to use for a summit at the prior one, a hollow glass bottle. And yeah, realized I had not by my own, well, I guess by my own fault, because I didn't read the event guide fully and clearly enough, rules are being broken. So please, don't break the rules. All the rules will have to change and ruin things for everybody.
As a follow-up on that, as has been stated, the Concord team, if you only read one single document for the game, please read the Concord event guide. Like, seriously, it's only 6 pages, and 2 of those pages are maps, and 1 of those pages is 12 pages, and 3 of those pages are maps, and 1 of those pages is like a blank introduction. So seriously, check it out. It takes no time at all, and this is the serious out of character stuff. It also has guides to what in character and out of character camping looks like and how to make it more in character, which is important, because if you are planning on doing in character camping, you need to look at this guide, because you do not want to set up your tent and then get told you have to pack it up and move it to out of character. Yeah, and the glass policy as well, of course, which is, there's a few more little things in there besides what Lucas mentioned, but yeah, important stuff, very, very important stuff. Okay.
So, with that out of the way, given that this is very much, I would say, it is closer to your, quote, area of expertise, unquote, would you like to kick us off with the first point, and we'll kind of mosey our way down the list?
Not a problem. Okay, so character creation, my favorite thing in the world. There are a million ways I could start this off, but I figured I would start with something a little out of character, which is, there are 2 basic ways to decide what kind of character, what kind of nation you want to join. And one of them is the theme, as in, maybe you have a whole bunch of costuming that fits one of the nations better. Maybe you want to play a specific character which fits into that nation. Maybe you've read the different nations and one of them just really calls out to you. And that is generally how I choose which kind of like nation or which kind of warband for any LARP that I would like to do. The other is absolutely as relevant, which is, you've got friends in one of the other groups. And as a first-time LARPer, that's going to be something that's very tempting. You will already have someone you know who you know will include you in their roleplay. They may also put you up with a tent. They may also loan you gear. And I just want to say that is absolutely a-okay. And honestly, if you do your first Concord and you have a great time, but you're like, you know what, I had a great time with those green welders, but the dark fantasy roleplay just doesn't seem to fit me very well. I want to try out those Bordavarians. I'd love to be a knight in full plate mail, or a squire. You know, like, that's a-okay. Next game, you'll have like 6 months to prepare, get a new costume, figure out a new character, and you can come back and be in a different nation. getting you to that first game is the most important thing. And as I've said many times to many people, one of the best things about Perf LARP is that we are a long way away from everyone else, which means that our secondhand market is thriving. So buy good quality kit, and if it turns out you don't like the nation you're with, just sell it back to the community, and you will make 90% of your money back, and then you can buy some more good stuff. So that's just the important first thing. Just as an added note on top of that, when you do decide which nation that you would like to be a part of, as soon as you figure this kind of stuff out, join the Facebook group. Start trying to make trainings if at all possible, because that will give you something to go on. You'll start meeting people and talking to people and figuring out where you fit into your nation. You will make connections when you get the game, but having a few people at least that you know, who you want to talk to, who you've chatted to even online, will mean that you feel a little more comfortable, because it doesn't matter if it's LARP or if it's any other kind of event. Turning up for the first time to something, especially if you don't really know anyone, man, it's a bit scary and it can make you a bit anxious. So those connections you make before game are very important. So, with that out of the way, I think probably the best place to start when you're trying to decide what kind of character you want isn't actually figuring out what nation. It's figuring out what you want to do. It's figuring out what you want to get from the game. Because Concord is a game which has an almanac, which is huge. It has a play guide, which is massive. It has so many things that you can read about, both in lore and in mechanics. But you don't need to know 90% of it. You just need to know your 10%. And the way you're going to figure out what you need to know and what you want to know about and what will be helpful is by figuring out what you want to get out of the game. So, for me, there are 6 main roles you can fill. Lots of little ones, and they combine, but there are 6 kind of main roles that I've seen. And I will very quickly go through them. By the way, Luke, feel free to jump in at any point. So, political. You've got the Senate, which is the main political sphere, and every nation elects a senator, and that senator chooses aides to come with them. And being in a political sphere does not necessarily mean, hey, I need to be senator. You can do lots of political things inside the game without necessarily getting to Senate. Lobbying is the most powerful political thing you can do, and guess what? Most of them are not senators. So it can be a really fun thing to be politically motivated. Talk to different nations. Talk to your own nation. See what rules happen in the Senate. Check it out. See if you can get given a position which assists the Senate. For example, you can not be a senator, but you might be involved with the Church of Divine Spheres. Maybe there's a role there to squeeze in. There's different kinds of ways to get into the Senate and be politically motivated and politically active. And it can be a fun goal to become a senator, maybe 2-3 games, or occasionally some people have managed to score it in their first. But yeah, there's the politics. Next is the military. So military comes in 2 lovely flavors, which is, hey, I want to biff people and I want to get into the confluxes, which is what we call kind of the big combat events, and actually hit people with my sword or my shield, my polearm, or cast some damaging spells, But there's also the war chamber. And that's where where prominent members who are chosen by, again, each of their nations decide what our armies do, what our fleets do. And that can be an incredible and also incredibly stressful time, because you guys are responsible for the survival of Concord, even more so than the Senate. Sure, the Senate decides where the money goes, but the war chamber is where people decide the fate of Concord, which territories we're going to lose, where we're going to send our armies to fight back, the risks we're going to take. So that can be an incredibly exciting part of the game. And I just want to say, you can be a general and never step out onto the battlefield. Or you can be a fighter and never see the war chamber. But military focus is an important thing to decide whether it's something you want to do. Next is religious. So there's the Church of Divine Spheres, and it is kind of like the moral compass of the Concord. And you can have votes in the Church of Divine Spheres by either taking divine law or by taking an investment, which we'll get into later, called congregations, and they give you votes to cast. And here's a couple of fun things about the Church of Divine Spheres. The Senate may decide what gets voted and what gets voted out, in what to spend the money on, what to do, how the Concord's focused, but literally anything that passes the Senate can be vetoed by the Church. It needs 2/3 majority, so it's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but if a Senate is doing something which is very unpopular with the greater populace, the Church has the ability to say, no, that is wrong, go back and fix this. So the Church has a political power which is strong as well, but it should be looking after the moral livelihood, like the people itself. The Senate can focus on the nations, the Church should be focusing on what is right and what is wrong, and that way, if they decide what the Senate has decided may be good for the nation but wrong for the people, they can say no. Additionally, the Church of Divine Spheres, of course, decides upon religious things. For example, in the first game, it was decided that they would sever ties with the Artipizani Church of Divine Spheres, which was the parent church, which is a big decision, led to some turmoil, and also led to them losing out on a bunch of money. But strangely enough, all the Ronamirans and most followers of Anarch were quite happy about that decision. Additionally, they can do something very powerful, which is they can inquisition people. So to inquisition someone or an organization means to investigate them for heresy. And that's a powerful thing, because if you are found to be a heretic or a heretical organization, there are serious consequences. For players, that means they can lose their investment. So if you're a leader of a military group, bam, they no longer follow you. You have a business, bam, you no longer get money from that business. So that's quite a powerful thing. Magical. So perhaps you want to be a sage or a scholar or a powerful archmage. There is the Shard Council, which is a lovely little place which only other mages can get to, and they decide the future for the Concord when it comes to magical studies. They're the people who decide what new spells get created, what new potions get created. They're the people who decide whether it's right to put research into necromancy to try and stop the Onyx aristocracy or to rule it out. So it can be a really fun time, especially if you like the idea of a special secret hideout which no one else can get to. And they have a lot of power in that regard. So if you're a magical type, that can be a fun time. Next is the trader. So trading is really interesting. There is the exchange, which is an auction house where anyone can put anything up on the auction house to make money. But I feel like a trader is something that you have to go into with eyes wide open, because more than any of the other kind of professions, other roles, it's something which you have to be an active participant in. You have to figure out what you want out of things. If you want to make a lot of money, cakeonomics works quite well to give a little bit of extra cash coming in, and you got to figure what that cash is going to be used for. Are you gathering money because you want to use it on the Concord and help support? Are you gathering money because you have a goal? Maybe you want to create a super powerful item with artisan, or a very powerful potion, and you're using that money to support your crafting. Do you want money because your character is a greedy person and you want to create a monopoly? Like, you actually have to come with a good idea and have to be willing to get involved, put things up on auction, talk with everyone, but you need goals, because if you're just going into it because you think trader is an easy role, honestly, I think it's one of the hardest, because you can just rock up to the Shard Circle and there'll be content there. You can rock up to the Church of Divine Spheres and there will be content there. But to be a trader is to make your own content. So that's important. And Surgeon. So Surgeon is an amazing cool role. You kind of have to go all in with experience points because you require 6 XP out of your 8 XP to do it. But if you're looking for really quite strong and powerful roleplay with people screaming, people in pain, and you being in a stressful environment of your own creation, like Surgeon is such a cool role because every time people go out on confluxes, they will come back with either spiritual or physical injuries, traumatic or spiritual injuries, and those are serious things. We've had things like literal PTSD with someone thinking they have bees in their bones. We've had people come back from an Ilsevere fight, an Ilsevere like mind-controlled Vikings, with leeches inside them that mind-controlled their mind. And I tell you, I know for a fact the first person who yanked one of those out of someone in surgery didn't use gloves. And that leech burrowed into them. And suddenly, the surgery had a surgeon who was mind-controlled and attacking people. So,
I can,
Surgeon,
if I may, I can attest to that because I was in the surgery when they came back. Because I specifically said I want to go see what happens because I was very curious. So I got to observe that happen. I got to observe one of our very good warriors with 3 of these things in him. They had to, and this is how deep a lot of people go, is they had to literally and physically strap this person down, holding them with all their might, so this person didn't go berserk and just start going berserk. It was horrifying and stressful, and on a very weird, morbid level, I was very fascinated. But
look, it's fantastic roleplay. It's great fun. You have to go in with a mindset of I want to experience highs and lows, but it's great stuff. And I'd strongly recommend that for people who don't have any intention to biff. Honestly, if you don't want to get out there and fight for either because you're unable to due to a medical issue, or it's just not interesting to you at all, but you still want incredibly strong roleplay, you still want to deal with blood, then becoming a surgeon is a fantastic time. It may not always be a fun time, but it'll definitely be a time. So, have a think about that kind of stuff. Pick 2, tops 3, I would say, that you want to do. But think about what appeals to you, because this will help decide, one, what nation you want to be a part of, because I can be a priest, but every single nation has a different style of priest. And being a priest of the needle, my god, that's a lot different than a Sageite from frigging Iron Valley. And I love both flavors, but they're very different flavors. So write down what you want of that, and then we look at the nations. So I would recommend reading the flavor text for each of the nations if you can. I know it's 2 pages each, and that's 10 pages if you go for all of them, but I think the flavor texts are the easiest way to quickly get a feel of a nation, the feel of who they are in theme, and that will kind of let you know, hey, this is someone who I want to be with. But I can understand you want to do less. Then have a look at the wiki, and that'll give you it in brief. But there are a few things that I think you absolutely should read. A bare minimum of stuff that you need to read, because if you don't read this bare minimum, it'll be harder to create a character which fits into Concord as a LARP. It'll harder to fit into your nation with an understanding of who your nation is. And if you need to get someone else to read this to you, that's a-okay. That's fine. But I do think you should read. So the first thing you should do is you should read the introduction, the flavor text, and at the very least skim the introduction, because they'll give you an idea in brief who they are. You need to read the 5 things about what the Andashi, Bordavar, whatever isn't, why you should play the nation. You need to read those because in brief, they will tell you who you should be, what you should be about, and what you shouldn't be. And sometimes what the Bordavar or Andash or whatever isn't is just as important. You should skim the culture and customs and religious beliefs. That's important. Just at the very least skim it, because that'll give you an idea of who you are as a character. And you should also read the look and feel and what to avoid. So look and feel and what to avoid are good, because that'll help you know how to create your soft kit to match, and also what themes to not do. Because, for example, with Iron Valley, we don't just want Vikings. Don't purely be a Viking. There are wonderful different themes which can be explored in Iron Valley, from like Lord of the Rings, like you've got the Rohirrim, you've got dwarves, like there are many different things, but it should be a mixture of these things. Yeah, so look, honestly, that's the absolute bare minimum theme-wise that you should look at, and I would heavily encourage people to look at more than that. But if that's the bare minimum, that's your bare minimum. So that out of the way, I think if you've decided kind of what nation you want to do, the next place you should probably look at is archetypes. So archetypes are relatively new. The idea behind archetypes is that every nation has a few kind of unique roles in it. And they have their own little bits of history, they have their own costuming style, and they have their own things that are expected of them. And even if you decide not to choose one of the archetypes of your nation, they will certainly give you an idea of the nation of kinds of characters, and maybe you can just pick little bits and pieces and use them. If you do choose an archetype, looking at the latest Winds of the World, players have been given little kind of bonuses for picking archetypes. Little kind of extra roleplay prompts, which is nice, and even some mechanical bonuses to kind of encourage people to look at these things, encourage them to take up roles within the Empire. So definitely check out the archetypes. I freaking love them. For example, one of them is Priest of a Needle, which is from Lorona Mia, where when you talk to your petitioners and talk to them about your sphere and how they're doing, often it'll culminate with a tattoo design being inked on you. And I know for a fact we have several Priests of the Needle within Concord. Or you've got Ritters, who are heavily armored warriors, and they're the kind of a protectors of Greenwell from external threats. And I love that kind of image of a heavily armored Greenwelder. Or Crow Dog. So cool, again from Greenweld. Who are Plague Doctor kind of thematically inspired, and they're the ones who managed to beat off the Blaster Strait and expert medical practitioners. Just so cool. Definitely check out archetypes.
I'll throw a couple of archetypes out myself.
Oh yeah, go for it.
A couple from Andash that, I'm a little biased, playing a character from Andash. So there's the Learned Mage. So in Andash, we have...
Learned Arcanist?
I mean, either or. Learned Mage, Learned Arcanist. I can't quite remember what the name of it is, but the general idea is you have gone through the School of Gifts, which is the Andashi School of Magic. There is a mechanical benefit to having the School of Magic, but that's not ultimately super important bring up here, but mainly there is a school In the Triblades of Andash, you can play a Andashi character, a mage, that has gone through this school. You have earned your letter of graduation, and that is your key identifier that you have graduated from this extremely prestigious school. So being someone that knows about magic, that has studied magic, that has gone through tomes and tomes and pages and parchments on all different kinds of things. The scholarly type and a mage type is right there. Another one, if you want to be a little more adventurous, again, I don't have the name of it in front of me, but you're a Tomb Raider, you're a dungeon delver. You are a daring adventurer, kind of Indiana Jones type, going into the tombs and dark catacombs of Andash and their sands, and finding things in the ancient empire that have been lost, or maybe finding things that should have been better left kept in the dark. Loads of really cool, all the realms just have cool, really, really cool archetypes that really can cement you in the realm as, this is a thing. They're all interesting. They're all cool.
I absolutely 100% agree. Not all of them have been fleshed out yet. They're slowly releasing them, but all of them have a description. So you can still choose to be that archetype, even if not necessarily all the details have been released yet. And also, if you haven't chosen an archetype, but an archetype looks like something you would do, you can state that you are now an archetype. Don't feel like you're locked out of it forever because you didn't choose it, because you started at game 1. By the way, Luke, you're 100% right. It's Delver, so you did well, my friend. But yeah, definitely check them out. I love the archetypes. I think they're a fantastic new thing to bring in. And can I just say, as an older LARPer from the first Shadow Worlds, I'm glad that these archetypes went a slightly different way, hey? No gun mage? No? Anyway.
No guns. So no guns, no horses. There is actually one more thing I will point out that is interesting.
Yeah.
There's no mechanics for them yet. There's no rules for them yet, per se. But there is a list of them. If you go to Bordevar and you look at archetypes, there are banned archetypes.
Oh yeah, that's true.
The other realms don't really have other realms don't really have this just yet, but it's certainly a very cool look at, like, hey, this could be a thing in the future, and it would be awesome. Hint, hint, team watching this, do it, please.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Banned. BAND, not as in forbidden archetypes.
I mean,
very important. Thank you for that chat note. But yeah, like the idea of actual groups is pretty cool, and you can already honestly see how they'd fit in with the other nations, and I do love the idea. Very cool. What next? Here we go. So archetypes. So, forbidden archetype. Sorry, can't go back. Look. So I thought from here we might start delving into how I try and think up of backstories, how I try to create a character. And I think the best way to start is from the very beginning. And the very beginning is, of course, our parents. Just please note, it is not compulsory to have dead parents and be a LARP character. Your parents can be alive and well. You can even have a really happy upbringing. I know that probably sounds strange and weird, but you don't need to kill your parents off. Now, that out of the way, who are your parents? And how do they relate to your role? So, I'll give an example. Say you were a Delver, like Luke was pointing out. Very cool archetype, right? So, why are you a Delver? Were your parents Delvers? Did they take you on their archaeological activities? Did you scratch away at tombs before you could walk? Or, alternatively, were they city dwellers or perhaps farmers? And did they not respect respect the Delvers? Did they think perhaps the Delvers were wasting their time when they should have been doing something of real worth to the present day? How do they feel about your profession? Why? Like, how do they feel about what you do now? How did that inform who you are now? Because I feel like childhood and teenage years are a wonderful way to shape who you are now. Where you came from is so important. So, those are questions to ask. How do they feel about you? What were they? How did it affect your childhood? And are they alive? Are they still part of who you are? Are they still part of a reason you're in your jobs? Like, I don't know, for example, maybe if you were a Greenwald crow doctor, perhaps the reason why you're still a crow doctor is because you were instrumental in helping your village get through Blaster Strait. You lost one parent, but managed to save the other. Perhaps they were the ones who brought it to your village, and you feel a sense of guilt, a sense of debt in being on the front lines anytime Blaster Strait comes up. And if that was the case, how do you feel about the fact that a new area of the Greenwald has been shown to be completely and 100% infested with Blaster Strait? The city's one giant festering plague-ridden sore. What would your character think about that? So, next is, why are you in your profession? So, Crow Doctor, we just discussed that, right? You're in your profession because you want to get rid of Blaster Strait, right? But if you're a soldier and you have a mercenary band, why are you in your profession again? Did you get forced into it to try and defend your homeland? Did you get into it because your livelihood was destroyed? Like perhaps you grew up a farmer and now you're a mercenary. And how does that like channel your goals? So once again, going back to our lovely Crow Doctor, like if you're in this profession because you want to help other people against Blaster Strait, make certain it never gets any further, what are your goals for Concord then? Surely you'd be wanting to make certain that the surgery is as well equipped as possible. Does that mean that you're lobbying your senator to try and get him to put more funds into the surgery? Does that mean that that you make certain that everyone who goes into a Greenwald conflux is stopped and checked for any signs of Blaster Strait? Like, think about how, like, who you are affects what your goals are and how you achieve those goals. What's the most effective way of doing it? Is it talking to the general populace? Is it hitting up the Church of Divine Spheres? Is it researching something in a shard circle? Think about that. And come back to those 2 to 3 things we were talking about before, those 2 to 3 political, military, religious, magical, trader, surgeon. So, then, why are you at the Concord? Now, this one is unfortunately one of the easiest things that you looked over. I've been to many LARPs before, and so often I ask somebody, hey, why are you at the Nexus at Shadowworld? Why are you here to fight for the gods? Why are you on this spaceship? Floating through space on this voyage? Like, why are you in this survivor group? How did you get here? And now the zombies are all around us. Like, it's a really important question. Why are you at Concord? And it's honestly surprisingly easy to answer. Because if you've just worked on your background, if you've just had a thought about who you are, where you're from, what your focus is, then you might have already answered this. But it's a good idea to think about it, because anytime you have a role-play conversation with someone and you start to go, what am I meant to say? You can come back to it. Hey, I'm at the Concord because I want to make certain my tax money's getting spent right. That's a bloody good reason. Hey, you're a merchant. You're getting taxed way more than you ever used to. You're not okay with that. So you're here to make certain that you can get a piece of that pie. So if I'm having a conversation with someone and the conversation starts to go dry a bit, I go, so, tell me, what goods are common in your homeland? Do you have anything to sell? Are you interested in a delicious toasted cheese sandwich? Like, these are the things that help you roleplay. And on that note, short-term and long-term goals, in character, out of character, really good things to have. They can be in character, they can be out of character. So I will give some examples here. A very long time ago, got 2-3 years back or something, I played a character called Golan the Shoreshot, who was a mostly senile sea elf addicted to an all-natural health supplement, which was pretty much just sea elf meth. It was a really good fun time. I just handed out Tic Tacs to people. So I had goals coming into that game, because the previous character I played had been... I fell into that unfortunate pitfall that many new players do, which is I made a character who didn't talk much. I made a character who was big on his own honor. I made a character who was surly. And because of that, I didn't actually get to spend much time talking to people. So I had goals. One of my goals was that I wanted to talk to every single person at the game. Now, I don't think I actually did talk to all 180 people who attended that game, but I certainly did a lot. And I figured out the way to do that was to keep offering my Tic Tacs to people and say, would you like to try an all-natural, healthy medical supplement? It makes you feel full of vigor, full of life, it restores energy. And then I would give it to them, convince them to take it, and then immediately afterwards I'd say, oh, you're not a human, are you? Oh, that's a problem. Don't worry, just letting you know, sometimes it can incite feelings of homicidal rage and a need for blood. But it's only the rare person. And then I'd say, hey, look, out of character, feel free to roleplay with this however you want. You can just say it has no effect, and that's fine. You can say it just gives you a little buzz, that's fine. If you want to pretend that you're seeing fairies, you can do it. Just roleplay however you want. And I had a great time, talked to lots of people, had lots of fun experiences, and worked. Another goal I had was that I wanted to exchange hunting stories and legends with every faction. And I managed to do that. I had a great time. And that gave me a reason to talk to people. That gave me a reason to talk about things. And also it gave me a reason to ask people questions. Trust me, every single LARPer wants you to ask them about their backstory, but in a way which doesn't lead to them talking for 5 minutes non-stop about their hero quest. Like, ask them what... I'm a historian. I collect legends and stories. Does your family have a legend or a story you could tell me? Hey, I'm a healer. I'm interested in other nations' ways of healing. What ingredients do you use? What herbal remedies do you have? What are your arcane rituals you do? So, like, this is the kind of stuff you think about. Find something that's important to your characters. Fund your character and ask those questions. Yeah, so like, for example, look, I would go to you, hey, you're from Arndash, aren't you? You guys are meant to be tribal nomads. Like, what do you do if someone breaks their leg on campaign?
And therefore the response would be, well, generally we would lay them down, we'd give something to bite within their teeth. We would apply a splint and then whatever herbs we have to dull and numb the pain so proper medical attention can be given, whether by one of the mage we have traveling with us, or a surgeon, or some form of a apothecary application. We're here at the nearby city.
And there we go. Or if you're a fighter, you would go up to an Andashi Janissary and say, hey, you guys are mercenaries, right? But apparently you work for free in the cities? What's up with that? and then you would get a response about, hey, I'm the emissary, yes, I tithe a month of my time. So find something that is you think would be of interest to their character, interest to them, and ask them about it. And before you know it, you'll have an awesome roleplay experience, and you will have quite possibly made someone's game. I've had people tell me their favorite bit of roleplay was from a brief interaction with myself, simply because I asked them about something really obvious on their kit, a weapon, a prop, something like that. And that's also something in regards to costuming. Put stuff on you that looks cool and have a story for it. If somebody else looks like they have something cool in their kit, ask them about it. Ask what the story is. They may not have a story, but they'll probably make one up. And that's another fun little way of doing roleplay. So, got slightly off topic. I apologize. So yeah, short-term, long-term goals. Create an expert level item, create a potion, introduce a vote to the Church of Flying Spheres, lead a charge against the enemy, die surrounded by friends. Just figure out something kind of cool that you want to aim for. And even if you don't achieve it, it'll have guided you in your role-playing when nothing's going on. Yeah. So, that's kind of the character creation section, really. When I'm generally helping people create characters, I give ideas and I kind of do a few spin-offs and see if I can find one that they like. But honestly, you've just got to figure out what ifs, what sounds cool. The archetypes help with that. And then kind of weave it all in with what you want to do at game. And like what sphere you're worshipping, which I guess we'll get into in a little bit. And then finally, like the mechanics, which is just what we're about to get into. So
I will point out
Yep.
another aspect.
Oh,
Because
go
we're
for it.
doing a lot of chat, which is all good, and I agree with that 100%, of what you want to do as an individual. And I 100% agree with what Stuart's put forward. Because when you initially said, like, choosing your realm isn't the first place you would recommend starting, I was like, okay, where are you going with this? And you went to the perfect spot, which is figure out who your character is first, then figure out what realm both that you vibe with the most and where the character would fit naturally the most, or not. You can be something that is normally against, that would be very different in your realm. I've come across, I am one of those people. I've come across other people that are doing that, and they really stand out, and it's super interesting because everyone's kind of doing their own thing. But another thing worth looking at is if you're getting into LARP for the first time, and you are getting brought in by other people, friends of yours and such, or if you and a group of friends are getting in for the first time, don't be afraid to do something together. You'll still come up with your own thing, of course, but going, as Stuart said, going in with friends or just people you know, or a group that you know, having essentially a place to come back to, if you're a bit confused or if things are a bit much, you have a place to come back to and sort of unwind a little bit, and especially to have a group that you can just trust, because that's a big thing I've loved in having two other people. So 3 of us are all from the same place in Andash, and very much a big thing is we trust each other completely, and that's such a boon. Of just you can trust them, that if you ask them to do something, they will do it. Or if they ask you to do something, you can do it. Like, it's such a good thing to have.
And I definitely agree. Group roleplay is very helpful. If you can get into like the Facebook group or come to trainings as early as you can start making connections. And that means you can start linking your stories. You meet someone who is an alchemist. Perhaps you trained under the same teacher. You meet someone who's a Ritter. Perhaps you were attacked and kidnapped by Zekatal and they managed to rescue you. Absolutely. Linking your story in with other people's story at the game not only creates a more interesting, more living, more breathing world, but also means that you will have guaranteed connections to come back to. So yeah, that's a bloody good point, Luke. Absolutely. If you can connect your story with others.
Now, on kind of a pseudo flip side of that is if you want to have a connection with another character that is antagonistic and exists before you and or the other person has come to Concord, make sure you talk to that person player to player, not character to character first. Make sure that is given the thumbs up, that is a-okay. They may have ideas to add to it and build it up more. Make sure that when you're doing, whether you're doing something that is friendly or antagonistic or rivalry or whatever, make sure the other people involved agree, they're into it, because there's nothing worse than turning up and saying, you person over there, I've decided I previously, in previous time you slighted me terribly and now I hate you, and that person as a player is not cool with that, or it doesn't make sense. Now there's a problem that's been created that didn't need to be there before. So make sure you communicate. If you're going to do that kind of thing, make sure people are thumbs up for it. If it is a connection-based thing. If it's a general, my character's personal views and how they view the world very much rubs shoulders the wrong way with the way this other realm tends to do things, that's different. That's very, very different.
I got to jump in here because now we're going to have a talk about consent. So here's the thing. Absolutely, what you said is correct, but as a personal thing, if I was setting up an antagonistic relationship, I honestly wouldn't do it with anyone who I wasn't already existing friends with. Because there's a lot of trust that goes into that. And it's really easy, no matter how much you think it isn't, and you can totally separate your roleplay from your real life. It is really easy to take shit personally. I am very blessed that I've had some good friends who love to do antagonistic stuff with me, because I often quite enjoy playing bastards. But check-ins are really important. Constant check-ins. It really does not hurt anyone at all to take a second, put your hand over your head and just go, hey, look, I'm just checking in. I just said some nasty things towards you in character. I just want to make certain that wasn't over the top. That wasn't like a bad time for you, because we can totally dial that back. That's a very important thing to do. I've done it many times. I have no issue at all of ruining my immersion by checking to see if a friend is okay because I just shouted at them. Also, that's another thing. Before you shout at someone, if you're setting up an antagonistic relationship with someone, ask them if they're okay to be shouted at. Some people, really not. Find your level of what's okay. If dealing with a friend who might have had an abusive ex who shouted at them all the time and beat them down with their words, I don't want them to relive that experience at LARP. That's bloody horrible. And on that note, if you have a different worldview of someone at LARP, that's awesome. That's cool. Get in there. Have discussions. Have chats. If it turns serious, have a check-in with them. Again, it doesn't hurt saying, hey, look, you were getting real upset. I just want to make certain that we're still kind of LARPing and, like, you're not getting upset in real life. And if they say, no, man, like, you're pushing it, stop. Just stop. Don't push back at that. Don't get irritated at it. Don't get angry. Don't blame it on them. Just go, hey, sorry, not a problem. And leave them. And take a lesson from it. Check in earlier. Remember, LARP is about having fun. It's about exploring things in a safe way. Sometimes things that we never get the chance to explore in real life because they might be negative. But if they're having a real life negative effect on someone, it's not okay. It's not fun. And as I've said like 3 or 4 times now, it costs nothing to jump out of character for a second and check if someone's doing okay. And I shouldn't need to say it, but if they're looking visibly upset, if they're crying, if they're like standing away from you, look at their body language, check in. They're not going to be irritated that you made certain they're okay. So, yes, by all means, set up antagonistic relationships, set up enemies. Enemies can be a lot of fun. But do make certain that you have a reasonable relationship with that person. And if you start creating an antagonistic relationship just at game, doesn't hurt to check in on them and just check to make certain that you guys are just doing this in character and they're not actually really shitty with you. So yeah, that's fair. And as an added final extra note, some people will just be shitty with you. Unfortunately, you're not going to get along with everyone, and that's okay. Just make certain you look after yourself, and if someone is being is showing quite clearly out of character that they don't like you, avoid them. There's people I don't like at LARP. Most of them I don't think are bad people. Their personalities just do not mesh with mine, which is unsurprising because my personality can be exceptionally large at times. So yeah, thank you for raising it. It's a very important thing to raise.
Again, I've seen the consent element be not broken through any ill will by someone, but I've seen it happen in a bad way. I've been a part of it, not directly a part of it, more on the periphery, but definitely still somewhat involved. It's not good. It is especially bad when you realize you've done it without meaning to. And as long as you take away from that how you can be better for both yourself and others, that's the best way to really go forward with it. Yeah, it sucks if it happens. But repeating whatever mistakes were made is just going to make it all happen again. So if it does happen, and that consent element is broken in a without you meaning to, take a breath, do a check-in, make sure everything's okay, make sure a dialogue happens, make sure things are understood, things are as cleared up as possible, and go forward and just do better. That's all you can really do.
Most of the time we learn from making mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are not good mistakes to make, and sometimes that is just, hey look, unfortunately I'm not going to have a good relationship with that person and you're going to move forwards. And trust me, I have made plenty of mistakes. It happens. And honestly, let's get a little real for a second. There is a massive part of the LARPing community who do not understand social cues due to neurodiversity or simply lack of socializing. So learning, it's a learning activity. You just learn and you get better and you keep going. Anyway, let's dial it back from the seriousness for a second and get back into character creation.
Absolutely.
Okay, so mechanics. The most important question for diving into spending your experience points is a very simple one, which is, do you want to biff or do you not want to biff? Do you want to foam sword some people? Because there are some basic stats that you get that everyone has, which means that anyone can biff. But if you end up spending all your experience points on non-combat skills, you will definitely have a harder time fighting and staying alive. So I'm going to start by stating what literally everyone has without spending any experience points on combat skills. So everyone has 3 hit points, base, with no armor. They have no energy or no mana. That's important because I've seen that as one of the most commonly asked questions. You do not have any energy, you do not have any mana at start. You can wear light or medium armor, and I'll quickly go into armor because this is another frequently asked question. Light armor is cloth armor, so it's thick cloth. So pretty much it's a gambeson. I'll be honest, like the only real thing I can think of which is light armor is a gambeson, which is something that's often worn under armor, but it's kind of thick, stiff cloth. Medium armor is leather armor, chainmail, and scale mail. It's flexible metal armor or thick leather armor. That is medium armor. Heavy armor is non-flexible metal, so that's plate mail, and also brigandine as well. But plate mail and brigandine. There's some exceptions to the rule, but that's a general. I don't want to get into it too deeply. It's important to note that if you have Wormwick or Arthammer armor, or some EA plastic armor, it is realistic enough to count as that. So if you are a weakling with back problems like me, and you've got access to a reasonable bank account, a full-time job, you can save up, pop like $1,000 down and get yourself a full set of Wormwick plate mail, and congratulations, you're now a Knight of Bordevar, and unlike the rest of the Knights, you don't have back problems by the end of the day. I cannot more highly recommend Wormwick armor. An Arthammer is very good in a different way. They have far more diverse and exciting designs, if you ask me. They have fiberglass and the polyurethane. I haven't tried out the polyurethane, so I can't 100% recommend it. I would very much like to, because from the looks of things, it looks super high quality and amazing. Fiberglass is very nice, but I will warn you, it chips. It's very fragile. So if you store it, you have to store it correctly. Otherwise, you end up like my wonderful Arthammer armor, which unfortunately has chips out of it because my dumbass let it bump against itself. So yeah, that's the basics of armor. But one last thing is this. You can't just wear a breastplate and you've got armor. It has to fill 3 slots. Now those 3 slots, those 3 areas are torso, front and back, full arms, full legs, half arms, half legs, or head. And it has to cover 75% or more. Oh, wait, or is it 80%? Whatever, close enough.
No, it's 75, you're right.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that's important. And the reason is because I find that most of my armor that I have as one piece doesn't cover that. So for example, I've got a wonderful set of Osric leather armor, which I hunted down for a while, which is just a really big long coat with lead plates sewn into it. But I still need to wear braces or shoulders to get the full coverage, or a head, or something on my head. So it's important that you take into account what areas are being covered by the armor that you are wearing, because if you have a really cool leather chest piece and you've got like some cool braces, but that's it, technically you're wearing no armor. You've just got awesome aesthetics going on. So be careful, take into account if you're missing like half arms or half legs or something, see if you can borrow some greaves or some braces from someone, see if you can borrow a helmet, like just try and get that up. It's worth noting that you cannot wear heavy armor without spending additional XP, but you can wear light and medium. It's also worth noting that if you're casting magic, you can only wear light unless you spend more XP as well. So, the final thing is everyone gets access to 110 centimeter weapons and throwing weapons, and anything smaller than 110 centimeters, and you have 4 slots. Throwing weapons take up 8 throwing weapons take up 1 slot. So if you wanted to, you could actually have a reasonable build of 1 sword and like 24 throwing weapons. And effectively, that's
as a
20.
note, I
Yep.
believe it's actually 5 throwing weapons in one slot.
Really? Oh god!
I would have
Thank you
to. I
very
don't.
much for that
I do not
correction.
have it in front of me, but the last time I checked, I believe it does say 5. Because
Well,
8, I would love if it was 8. That sounds awesome.
Man, I have been telling people the wrong thing. I'm terrible. Oh yeah, you're 100% right. It's 8. So 15. So you could carry 15 throwing weapons and a sword. So that means if you hit people on something which wasn't a shield, you could do 15 points of damage. Throwing weapons are not cheap though. So there is that. Thank you very much for that correction.
Wait, hang on. Are you saying 4 slots or 3? Because it's 3.
God, am I getting that wrong too?
Once again, I'm fairly certain I think we've got at least one person in the chat here that is part of the team that could probably correct this. Admittedly, I could also just pull up the wiki, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
It is 3
it's
slots.
3 slots.
Yep,
Thank you. God. Nah, you know what? Don't trust me for mechanical things like
It's
that.
Shattered World, different. This is also a good point. Different LARPs can have slightly different ways of doing things. This is an example of one of them. Don't be afraid if you get something wrong. You'll likely be corrected, and everything will be fine.
Oh, you know what? I feel spoilt. We've got Tim and I'm guessing Skittles there listening too. Thanks, Tim. Love you, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is the basics. And look, it is at this point I will tell a brief anecdote. One of my first times I came to training, years and years and years ago, I was having a chat with a wonderful human being called Mark Williams, who was at that time trying to teach people line fighting. And he told a story to me, a little anecdote to me, which was this. Everyone has a job in a line fight, and that is determined by what weapon they are wielding. For example, swords and shields are meant to hold the line and take the damage. The polearms slip in between and do the damage. Archers stay at the back and shoot for targets. Dual wielders skirmish around the sides. And single weapons die. And it's not wrong. If you get into combat and all you have is a 110 centimeter or shorter weapon, and especially if you don't have any armor, you're going to have a hard time. And it's just because anyone who has any other loadout is going to have an advantage of you. A dual wielder can block your attack and hit you at the same time, or just do 2 strikes, which you can only block 1. A sword and board is so much more durable and can easily block your attacks while attacking you. A polearm has range, and if there is any kind of line, you will not be able to hit them because they'll always have more range than you. Archers can just ping you because you don't have a shield to defend yourself with. So you can, and absolutely you are welcome to join the fight with only a single weapon and maybe some throwing weapons. But just be aware that you should probably at least get some medium armor, because that'll at least increase your survivability, because you're going to get hit. I would say now that it's probably a good time to go into the non-combat skills, and then after that's done, you can have a think about the combat skills, because it doesn't take much XP expenditure to have your character be more useful in combat, or have more survivability. Literally, kind of 2 or 3 XP spent will give you a shield, let you wear heavy armor, you dual wield, use a bow. It will give you more things to do in combat and feel more useful. It just depends on what you want to do and what's important to you for you to do outside of combat. Because at this point, it's probably worth mentioning you're probably going to fight in character, kind of like tops 2 times a game. Like, that's not very many. You'll probably NPC. I'll put it up to 3. You might do an additional kind of minor conflux, a little skirmish. So it might go up to 3. And if you NPC, it'll be a bit more. But like, the vast majority of the game is about things other than combat. Some of that is preparing for combat, but Concord has biffs, and those biffs are very important, but it isn't like a biff-tastic game. It isn't all about the biff. And that's a cool thing, but it takes into account why getting some non-combat skills with your XP expenditure can be a really good thing, and maybe only if you really want to go full warrior, getting into spending all your XP on combat skills. So
I will also point out before we go a bit further, this is likely something that would have been brought up at the tail end of talking about the different mechanic stuff that we're gonna go into a little more now. If you are a new player, and this is going to be your first summit, or whenever you attend your first summit as a player, after that summit, you may choose to completely mechanically rebuild your character from the ground up for free once. So if you find, I really don't like wearing, I got some heavy armor, I got the skill, I'm not really enjoying wearing heavy armor, you can get rid of that skill. You get that XP back, go grab something else. As a quick reminder, I just want to slip this in now, when you're having a look at the combat skills, the skill called Impaler, if you're reading this before Summer Summit 2022, that skill will not be available next year, as thrusting polearms will not be a thing. So if you're looking at getting a thrusting polearm for the game coming, which you got a couple of weeks, I'd be amazed if you get one, already have one, etc., etc. That is not going to be available next year, so do keep that one in mind.
Which saddens me, but I understand. I do enjoy my thrusting polearms. Very good points. The ability to change your build is wonderful. Because I mean, look, if you go into the game not understanding how it works, because you haven't played it before, you're probably going to make some choices which you might regret. It's worth saying, from what I understand, and please feel free to correct me, Tim Skills. You can also do the same with your investment, but they do ask for a reason why. Because understandably, changing your investment is a big thing as well. But you can request it and explain why, which is fair. Because otherwise, it's a mechanical thing. You actually have to pay money to do it.
So the investment part, I don't know if you can change your investment as the same way of respecing your character after your first game. I don't know if that one's a thing. So to that, I can't speak for.
I'm more than happy to be corrected. From what I understand, they do it if you give an explanation for why. Hey, I had a really terrible time. I've spec'd out of Apothecary. I did not enjoy Apothecary at all. My herbal garden now is useless, for example.
But beyond that, though, if you have the coin at game, specifically 2 locks, which, we might cover the coins at some point, you can pay at a summit 2 locks to the exchange and say you're changing your investment. That is a way you can actively do that, and at the next summit you attend, you will be considered to have that investment now. So there is a way to actively change that with money if you want to. It's worth noting, if you have upgraded your current investment at all, that upgrade will not carry over to your new one. You will go back to tier 1.
Okay, we have confirmation. Thank you, Skittles. Full respec is largely without any questions. Full respec does include investments. Players' fun with the reality of the game is more important. Also worth noting, beyond your first summit, characters can unlearn 1 skill each downtime, regaining the XP. I was not aware of that last part, and that's
a new one.
Awesome. That is really cool.
I agree.
Because I've had, I know at least one player who I've helped create a character, for example, did not have the money to go into Battle Mage by 1 XP. By 1 XP! But they really wanted to use a polearm. So I had to get Weapon Master.
Yep.
And now knowing that, they can unspec Weapon Master, grab Battle Mage, and they'll still be able to utilize polearms. So that's really good. Fantastic.
Worth noting as well with the unlearning a single skill. You cannot unlearn a skill that is a prerequisite for another. It's like you can't unlearn Magus if you have the Battle Mage or Blood Mage skills. You will have to unlearn those first and then Magus. Very important.
Yeah. Makes absolute sense, but sometimes you do need to state what should be a little obvious. So let's if that's all of that done, let's jump into non-combat skills, shall we?
Absolutely.
So there are a few different paths you can go when it comes to non-combat skills. I'll probably go with the biggest one first, which is the Mender Surgeon tree. So we talked about surgery before. Surgery is a big investment XP-wise. As a new character, you get 8 experience points to spend however you want, and every game that you attend, you'll gain an additional XP point to spend. And these bank, you don't need to spend it right away. And you can also save some from your initial character build if you want to spend it later. So to be a full-blown surgeon, you need to spend 2 XP on Mender, which allows you to offer first aid characters who are bleeding out and give them a single hit point back after 30 seconds. Surgeon costs 4 experience points, and it means if you spend 2 minutes performing appropriate roleplay, you can remove fracture. You can spend 3 minutes with someone who's terminal, which means they're effectively going to be dead this game, guaranteed, and they can move and act as if they're not in pain. You spend 5 minutes with a character who's wounded, they regain all lost hit points after 10 minutes of rest and relaxation. And you can do traumatic and spiritual wound cards. You may open them and reveal what the cure is. So it's a big thing, big XP expenditure, and it'll be pretty much the main part of your game, honestly. And I think it is a bargain. It is some of the coolest, fun, most intense roleplay you will have. It will be a big part of your game, but with that 6 XP, that only leaves 2 more XP for you to play with. And if you're a surgeon, honestly, there's a very high chance you're not going to be on the battlefield anyway. That's not to say you can't go, but it is important to make note that if you go down, someone else is going to treat you first before you can get back and help other people. So have a think about as a surgeon if you want to be a battlefield medic, and if you do, definitely consider getting at least some medium armor on you, and trying to stay well back from the combat because you don't want to go down. The other non-combat skills are Artisan and Apothecary. So these are kind of like 2 sides of the same coin, really. Artisan allows you to craft up to 3 items, but they have to be one of each rarity type. So these are magical items. You have Journeyman, Expert, and Master items. Journeyman items do not require additional resources to craft. Expert and Master items do. Which don't think of that as a bad thing. That can be a fun thing, because it gives you something to aim for at the game. Try to get all the ingredients required to create a master crafted magical item. The items that are crafted only last a certain amount of games. The lower in rarity they are, the less they last. And again, to repeat, just to clarify, you can only bring 1 of each type each game, and you have to decide that before games. That's a downtime thing. Excuse me. Now the alternative to that is Apothecary. So instead of only being able to bring 1 item but you turn up the game with it, Apothecary is you craft game potions during the Concord event by spending a few moments role playing and exchanging specific resources with Concord crew to gain an appropriate potion card. So, 2 sides of the same coin. Potions are really, really needed. Every game I've been to, they've flown all across Concord, especially before big events. Artisan items, the magical items, can be incredibly powerful. They're very effective. Usually they do something like give you access to a skill or a spell you don't usually have, but they can get pretty nuts. My personal little favorite one is the Crystal Hunger Robes, which allow you to spend a crystal mana, and instead of gaining just a single point of mana back, you get multiple. But yeah, they each cost 3 XP. You can spend an additional XP to get extra crafts or extra recipes, but honestly, you're not going to probably need that for a while, because you get 4 item recipes and 4 potions. 4 item recipes and 3 potions that you know how to craft when you first take the skill. And the final little thing, which I'm sure Luke knows about, is Divine Law. So, Divine Law lets you do 2 things. One, for every rank you have in it, it gives you a vote in the Church of Divine Spheres. And the second thing that it lets you do is it lets you cast ceremonies. So, ceremonies are these really big or small magical spells, rituals, which require a certain quantity of divine law in the same sphere. So often they involve people coming together and pulling a divine law, and a certain expenditure of crystal mana, and a certain amount of role play. And once all those things come together, they create certain effects. So they can be very minor effects or very powerful effects. My favorite and most common thing that I've seen it used for is winged messenger, or animal messenger, I can't remember the specific term, which lets you send messages to PCs or NPCs which are not present at Concord. So it allows fast communication, which is incredibly important when you're getting letters. Medium level kind of one, which I love to freaking death, is also a Servitas one, which forces a player, or it could be consented to only tell the truth for 2 events. They cannot lie directly, they cannot lie for omission, they have to tell the whole truth. And so, that is my favorite thing ever.
I'm sorry, I need to point out that ceremony is no longer available.
Oh no, they got rid of it! Oh, that was my favorite ceremony!
Yep.
It was so cool!
Yeah. Reasoning, I went over this with the changelog episode that is no longer available, because, again, Twitch did not inform me that VODs go away after a week. Now it's going up to 2 weeks. So, that's a thing. Don't worry, I'll re-record all that at some point and it'll all get uploaded somewhere. But mainly, yeah, that ceremony's gone because it's one of those really hardline, like, kind of, like, I see where the team's coming from with it, in that it's one of those kind of almost experience ruining things a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. It does force someone roleplay on someone, so that's absolutely fair. I just wish we had it in real life.
I kind of want to point it as a counter, and this has kind of been eating at me a little bit, just as a very small aside. There is also a ceremony that can be performed on someone if they are willing, and it can change their personality entirely.
Huh.
That seems just as bad to me.
No, I can see why. Sorry to interrupt. That was very rude of me. I can see why, because that's a purely voluntary thing. So that can be an arc. Say someone has, I don't know, like, has suffered a horrific experience, suffering from PTSD, I don't know, something like that. Or alternatively, like, they are a villain and want to become a good person. Like, I guess I can understand it, but yeah, I do see what you're getting at.
But it is ultimately it doesn't bother me too much, again, with that particular ceremony requiring the person to be willing. Like, okay. The truth forcing one, again, because I know for a fact some of the team are in chat, I do understand. But it was definitely one of those, like, if the processes of the game had time with that one, that could have been a really interesting, like, Senate, perhaps even like a Senate versus church debate of, like, what limits do we want to put on the use of this one? Because this is kind of a big one.
I get it, but look, at the end of the day,
Yep.
from my own experience, anytime an organizer team bans something, trust you me, the amount of conversation and back and forths that have gone over it, we could talk about it all day, and they still would have talked more about it, and would have a far better understanding of it.
100%
So,
agree.
besides my little oh no, that is an idea of a medium ritual, I guess, and like a really large ritual is something like you could slow an enemy army or do damage to an enemy army and stopping them from being able to reinforce.
Or raise. There are plenty that can raise armies, that can assist temporarily in engagements. There are some that can make temporary fortresses. There's some amazing things that these can do.
Yeah, there's some cool ones. And there's so many of them, honestly. It's just
beyond that, the greatest gift of the Shard Circle, and beyond that of Schools of Magic, is the possibility of researching new ceremonies.
Yes. Absolutely. There's some cool stuff you can get into a Shard Circle. It is one of my favorite little ones, because I love the idea of them just having their little kind of retreat away from the world where no one else can get into. It's wonderful.
Yeah, love Mage Club.
Mage Club, right? But okay, so where are we? So Divine Law. So it's worth noting quickly for Divine Law that Divine Law is something you can take multiple times, though you need to choose a sphere, and you can do multiple times in the same sphere, but it's worth mentioning you can have multiple spheres. It is also worth mentioning that the cost goes up by 1 every single time you take another point in it. So, first one costs 1, second one costs 2, third one costs 3. So, the most you could have if you spent all of your XP on Divine Law, which, if you want to go hard into Priest, you absolutely can do, is 3 Divine Law at start. So, it gives you an idea of how expensive Divine Law is, but also how cool it is.
As an additional little kind of addendum to that, you can have as many ranks in a sphere as you can get, but you can only have ranks in total of 2 spheres. Yep.
Oh yeah, each rank also allows you to master 2. Yeah, that's important. All right, cool.
In addition to this, the thing of performing ceremonies. There are some ceremonies that with your own ranks and maybe a little bit of potion assistance or item assistance, you can perform that ceremony on your own. If you have ceremonies you've chosen to know, you can't do on your own, you will need to be a part of a sect to be able to perform that.
Yeah.
Which we'll probably cover warbands and sects after we've kind of gone over the combat stuff a little bit. I definitely want to kind of get into sects and bands and kind of go over that a little bit. But just so,
absolutely,
to do amazing, magically divine things, you need friends.
That's right, or at least enemies you can tolerate. So that's the explicitly non-combat stuff, and that's kind of the expense to it. Now, before I jump into explicit combat stuff, I will also deal with magic. So, if you want to get into Shard Circle, or you like the idea perhaps of getting into combat, but you don't want to be on the front lines, perhaps Magus is your kind of thing. Magus is pretty cool. It costs 4 XP, and you get some lovely things with it. Channel Waystone and 1 spell of your choice. If I remember right, create bond. No, still create bond. You just don't need to do it for items. That's right. Sorry. Excuse me. So you get Channel Waystone, create bond, and 1 spell of your choice, and 4 mana. Now, if you're going a combat mage, I would highly recommend the follow-up to that, which is Battle Mage, which costs another 3 XP and gives you pole arms, the ability to wear medium armor and cast spells, and you can cast spells through your pole arm. It does mean you've pretty much got no more XP to spend, because that's 7 out of your 8 XP, but if you're going if you, like, your main thing you want to do is get involved in mage stuff and also get involved in combat, it is an absolute bargain of a deal. There are some requirements in that you need to wear a circlet for it, and also if you don't have access to medium armor or a pole arm, it's probably not going to be much use to you. An alternative is Blood Mage, which is, instead of going, hey, I'm going to get into the thick of it and hit people with a stick, instead you have the option of consuming your hit points to get more mana, which is just freaking amazing. I absolutely love it. You can't do it any more than your max hit points. So if you're not wearing any armor, that would be 3 hit points, or if you're wearing light armor, that would be 4 hit points. And if you haven't spent extra XP on extra hit points, but it's a pretty cool way of going about things. Requires a little bit of roleplay, which of course I'm sure no one would be sad about. Yeah. Additionally, if you want more spells or more mana, you can purchase them. Every spell is just an additional 1 XP, and additional mana is bought in the same way as Divine Law, so it's 1 for the first one, 2 for the second, 3 for the third. Okay.
Did you go over what Magus gets you at the baseline?
Yeah, I did indeed. So that's just repeating again. It gets you 4 mana, and it gets you Channel Waystone, which allows you to teleport from place to place through the Waystone. Notably lets you get entry into the Shard Circle, lets you create bond, and gives you 1 spell, which we won't go through at the moment. Have a look at the spell list. There's plenty to cast.
So, as another addendum, the Create and Sever Bond spell is no longer available, as that power has been shifted. The various ways that spell could be used has been shifted to the artisan skill to allow them to bond to the items they make to people.
I thought it still was effective for creating sex or warbands.
Nope, that power. So there is now a ceremony of Lumos that allows the performance to bind people to a sect, and there is an Arcadian ceremony to bind people to warbands.
Huh. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you very much. Thank God you're around, mate. Honestly, like, I don't know what I would do without you, Luke. I should get you into my next character creation. I've learned so much. Unfortunately, I'm behind in the times.
I am available if ever you need me.
Thank you, my friend. So, now we get on to combat skills. So, I recommend having a good think and choosing your non-combat skills first. And then once you've done that, you can see what XP you got left over and choose what you go. Unless you're going all biff, in which case you can easily spend everything in combat skills. So of note, in brief, Archer for 3 XP lets you use bow and arrows. Armored lets you wear heavy armor, so plate mail for 2 XP. Blade Hand lets you dual wield for 2 XP. Bulwark, which is 3 XP, honestly is a bargain. Deathless, which increases your bleed out timer, which is quite specific. If you've got a bunch of enemies who are casting venom, you may regret not getting Deathless, because that decreases the timer of your bleed out. So you may just go terminal real quick. Impaler, which we talked about before, is going the way of a dodo, which lets you do thrusting weapons. Juggernaut, which gives you an extra hit point. Worth noting, if you do get it, you cannot purchase the additional mana skill. So that's important. It also costs 2 XP, and goes up 2 more XP each time to 2, 4, 6, 8. Stay with me. You can spend 5 seconds to 1 point of energy with character bleeding out, and they will return to 1 hit point. So that's quite useful. It gives some kind of emergency first aid at the cost of energy, not mana. Weapon Master, which you may wield great weapons and polearms. And Hand and a Half, which I believe is a new one. You may wield great weapons in one hand to deal damage and defend. Your other hand is still considered occupied, cannot dual wield, cannot use a shield, not a free hand for spellcasting, and requires Weapon Master. Cool. So yeah, choose what works for you. Important things to note: archer. If you decide you want to be an archer, you're going to need a bow. You're going to need arrows. Arrows can get quite expensive, so you can get in on an order. And you also need to pass the archery clearance. I'll be straight up. I feel like being an archer is one of the most difficult ways to fight, if not the most difficult in the game, because you have to be careful. An arrow, even LARP safe, to the eye, does hurt. I have experienced an arrow to the eye and to the head, and it is not a fun time. So you need to practice. You need to practice, honestly, way more than most people who LARP. But it can be a hell of a lot of fun for people to do it. I know that because a lot of people tell me. Blade hand, dual wielding can be fun. It also does require some practice as well. I mean, everything does, I know, but most people just are not used to using something in their offhand. And people who can dual wield well are really good, and they're horrifying to face, especially as someone who uses polearm. Dual wielders are my worst nightmare. But make certain you attend some practices, get some training in, and try it out.
And for that, do not ever be afraid to ask questions at game, at trainings, or through the various Facebook groups. Ask questions. People will listen. People will help.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, if you're not a super great fighter, but you're coming to Biff, what's that? Also, while archery is fun and effective, it's not a right. It's absolutely the most dangerous thing in the game. We have removed people's tried to do so before. Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, 100%. Archery can be dangerous, and if you are not showing the correct skill, or you're simply shooting dangerously, yeah, the organizer team will remove your right, remove your ability to be an archer, and that's good. Absolutely right for a way to act. What was I saying? Asking for advice. Yeah. Honestly, a great way to get some training in. If you haven't been able to make many trainings, you really should try. But if you can't, understandable. At game, find some fighty types in your nation, in our nation, and go, hey, can you show me how you fight? And see if I can train you. I mean, they may be as badly trained as you, but either way, it'll be a fun character encounter. Like, give into it, give it a crack, have some fun. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think that's about it. No, that's right. So I recommend anyone who is buying weapons, you're leaving it very last second, but in general, please, for the love of God, try out weapons before you buy them. Like, Perth is a pretty good community, it's reasonably large, and there's probably someone who already owns what you want to get. Ask. Try out weapons at training. If you see someone with a cool sword, go, hey, would I be able to give out a bit of a swish about? Most people are going to say yes. If you're lucky, they may even let you borrow it for a fight. Not guaranteed, though. I've got some weapons I have no problem loaning people. I've got some weapons no one's allowed to touch, besides maybe like friends that I trust a lot, because I can't get another one. But yeah, try things out, because the worst feeling in the world is spending a good chunk of change on something, having it arrive, and then realizing it's too top heavy, or in some cases the grip's too small. It's just the worst. So try weapons out before you buy them, then order them and buy them. Mm-hmm. And we've got a reasonable selection of places to go these days. We've got Science of Swords as always. We've got Mythalon. We've got who are those lovely people who came to Shadowworld who brought me my Osric armor? I've forgotten who they're called.
Oh, right. It's out of my head. I'm so sad.
Yeah, I'm going to find that. We'll absolutely come back to that because I love those people. That guy was absolutely fantastic.
So real quick,
he even wrote me a little handwritten note on my armor, like in character. It was so wonderful.
Awesome.
Like, yeah. Anyway, sorry, you were going to say?
Yeah. So real quick with items, equipment, all that jazz. For Concord, there are items, as we mentioned, the artisan crafts and potions as well. Those must be physically represented. So, for example, if you have a tag for, a one-handed magic weapon, you need to have a one-handed weapon to put that on. Same thing for any artisan crafts that are, because there's three kinds. There are weapons, there is armor, and there are talismans, which can be anything from jewelry to shields to reliquaries. All of it.
Sorry, just jumping in. Whoop. Adventures Bastion.
That's what
Bastion.
It is. There we go.
Get in contact with them. They're smaller, but they're absolutely responsive. Had a great experience with them.
Yeah, big plug.
Please continue.
Yeah. So any artisan craft you have, given, etc., or potion must be physically represented. You must actually have that prop, or you don't have it. To repeat, as I said at the top of this episode, for potion bottles, do not use hollow glass. Whether, actually, in fairness, whether it's a potion bottle or anything else, drinking bottle, part of your costume, don't have hollow glass at all. For potion bottles, hollow glass is only okay if you have filled it with resin first. Make sure it has resin in it, because this takes place on a sheep paddock that we have has been generously made available for LARPs and WA to use. We don't want glass going on this paddock because the livestock will eat it and bad things will happen. Please just don't use hollow glass. You can avoid it, just don't.
It's worth mentioning that while single-service glass receptacles are not allowed at all, you can have some glass objects.
Yeah, like multi-serving bottles, for example, are fine as long as they're handled with care.
It is worth mentioning, however, that if anything does break, that you get someone else to grab and organize it. Stay where the hell you are. Keep your eyes on the shards, because they're all got to be gotten and carried and cleaned up 100%. Don't panic and just try and do it yourself, and hide it. You'll get in far more trouble if I find out that you've stuffed up. If it's just broken, we can get all the shards. That's okay. So yeah, important mention.
Cool. Yeah, represent your stuff. It's always worth it. And again, especially when it comes to potion bottles, if you can find something, even just cheap, good quality plastic test tubes, you can bulk buy those things. Not just from Amazon, but there's Australian sellers that can bulk sell them for really good prices. You don't also have to put anything in your potion bottles at all, if they're not glass, that is. You don't have to put anything in them. You're not required to. You can, if you want to put some cool stuff in it, something that can actually be drank, as long as the vessel is food safe, of course, or just fun-looking stuff.
Absolutely charmed by Robin's candy potion bottles. I think that is one of the coolest and cutest ideas I've seen. You put little lollies in a potion bottle, and that is how you heal yourself or get back your mana or energy, because as long as you're not diabetic, popping the potion top and chomping on some candy is pretty freaking fantastic.
Yep, just chug some gummy bears and you'll be fine.
Okay. Well, unless there's anything else on that note, we should jump into investments.
Absolutely.
Okay, investments. I love investments. I think it is another wonderful little bit of a game that makes every character special in a kind of unique way and still joins them in with the greater Concord and gives them a means to affect the world around them. So I'm going to briefly go through the different kinds of investments and then maybe we'll pick apart a few to kind of deep dive into. So I'll start with talking about businesses and farms. So businesses and farms work pretty much the same in that they both earn you additional money that you can take to Concord. Now, if you succeed in upgrading them, because all investments can be upgraded, if you can get some rare resources, it's different depending on which, they then allow you to gain either more money or minerals or wilderness resources. So businesses give you minerals, which would usually come from a mine, and farms give you wilderness resources, which usually would come from wilderness. So from what I've seen, a lot of people have been choosing businesses and farms because they enjoy the flexibility that allows them. It gives them an upgrade option, which gives them access to resources which will come in great handy, and additionally gives them money, which either lets them just have a fun game and buy pretty much whatever they want in Cakenomics, or utilize that money to buy resources they need for, say, artisan or apothecary or supporting other people. So quite popular. The second kind of most popular investments I've seen is military and naval. So military and naval work mostly the same way. They're effectively like a military, so like a group of soldiers or like a boat or several boats to the strength of 100. And that can be represented in any way you really effectively want. So it could be like 100 Bordavarian peasant rabble, maybe? Or it could be like 10 elite Greenweldian hunters and commandos who've been fighting against Zekatal since the Zekatal invaded. It could be like a whole bunch of little fishing vessels, or it could be one warship. So thematically, it doesn't really matter except how it affects your character, what would make more sense. Some military investments that I've seen is, I believe it was a street gang. There was another one which was a group of Zekatal Zekatal fighting guerrilla fighters from Greenweld, and a peasant levy of people who'd armed themselves and come up from Bordavar. So there's really interesting ideas you can do. Now, the prime difference, I'm going to talk about the things that military and naval investments can do, and then I'll talk about the unique elements to each. So they can do some pretty standard things. They can reinforce and attack on with an army or a naval fleet. They can help defend in the same way. They can take independent action, which effectively means, hey, let's go raiding. So they attack an enemy's region and bring back resources for you that they have looted. And then the military investment gets a special thing, which I think is really amazing, which allows them to scout. So effectively what they do is they go exploring the enemy territory and come back with unique information that you can then take to game. It's called Scout the Front Line. And the naval unique investment that they can do is trade with foreign ports. So if any foreign ports open to Concord, you can pretty much send your fleet off to there, and it's a roll of a dice to see what resources you get. You might not get anything, but you could get a really great windfall. The difference between, say, trading foreign ports and independent action is independent action, from what I can read, is based off the power of your investment. So naval and military investment starts at 100. When you upgrade it, gets greater. The more powerful it is, the more resources you would get from independent action. Whereas trade with foreign ports can give you some quite interesting and wild resources.
In addition, with the naval investment of trading with foreign ports, if you're curious of what the different ports could possibly get you, that's actually listed on the wiki under native and foreign powers, I believe, and it actually will say, trade with these nations will get you this, or could get you this, rather.
So an additional bonus is that if you're training with a nation which says you could get this, you got a better idea of what resources you could be bringing back.
Absolutely. Or where to get certain resources.
All right, well, that's cool. I'm glad you added that. Thank you very much. Now, what else have we got? So that's military and naval. That's business and farm. Might as well join in,
if I may.
Yeah.
The most taken investment of all, at least as far as put forward for the last summit, is the herb garden.
Yes. No one talked to Owens about this. He'll put him in an apoplectic fit. Yes, good old herb gardens. So herb gardens are required for surgeons and apothecaries. They create herbs which are used in potions and used for treating wounds. And apparently there's a lot of them. It's quite an important one if you're going down the surgeon or the apothecary route. It is worth mentioning, however, that it is not 100% necessary. You can rely on both the kindness of strangers and good cold hard coin to purchase what you need, but it of course makes it a lot easier. Then we've got, let's quickly talk about mines and wildernesses, because they shouldn't take long. So mines and wildernesses give you a resource of your choosing from the list. So what do we got? Wildernesses create either heartwood, beatstone, black sap, shimmering scales. They produce 10 of each every game. And mines produce either forged steel, sun's iron, blood glass, essensite, and again 10 every game. And as with everything else, they can be upgraded to increase their output. Okay. It's worth noting additionally that if you upgrade your mine or upgrade your wilderness, the additional 5 measures of resource can be the same as the first 10, or they can be different. So you could have 10 heartwood and 5 beast pone, which allows you to diversify a little.
I believe, much like the vine laws we discussed prior, I believe it can be a maximum of 2 different resources.
Okay, not a problem.
That one I'm not as certain on, but I believe that is the case. Again, we have people in chat to correct us if that is the case.
You are correct. This may be the same as the original resource or one other wilderness resource.
There we go.
So you're right. So you can diversify, but you can only do 2 different types at max. Okay, let's see. What investments do we have left? We've got, of course, we've got the ley line. So the ley line is pretty much what is probably going to be most mages' first go, first choice, because ley lines give you crystal mana, and crystal mana not only gives you backup mana to use, say in a fight or if you need to cast a spell or something, but additionally ley lines will allow you crystal mana will allow you to help fund things. So there's some things in a shard circle, for example, which will require crystal mana to further research. And additionally, when it comes to ceremonies also require crystal mana to be used. So if you've got a good chunk of crystal mana, much like any other resource, it can be sold and you can make a reasonable amount of money with it. Or it could be donated if it's required to do something else. So ley line, very simple, very powerful. And then we've got congregation. So congregation is perhaps one of the more unique investments.
I agree entirely. That's actually my exact thought. Is like, of all of them, Congregation is probably the most. The most unique of all of them.
So, originally, Congregation provided some crystal mana, a little like less crystal mana than a ley line, but some crystal mana and 10 votes. Now, the organisers have changed it, and I think it is a wonderful change to give more options. So now, a Congregation gives 5 votes in the Church of Divine Spheres, guaranteed every single game, and also you get a choice. You can either accept a tithe, which is you gain keys equal to 3 times Vitia. So if it was your, it was a level 1 Congregation, then it would be 3 keys. You can choose Mysticism, so you gain crystal mana equal to times 2 Vitia. So at level 1, that would of course just be 2. Or you can Petition, which is you gain church votes equal to 2 times Vitia. So I love how with upgrading your Congregation can give you a surprisingly large amount of diversity into what you can do. And I guess it just depends on what your priorities are for the game. I'm thinking probably a lot of people are going to go with Mysticism, honestly, because crystal mana is something that's very much needed to do ceremonies. But then again, if you're turning your first game and you want a few extra keys, you can absolutely take Tithe, or you just want a couple of extra votes to get your viewpoint across. You can take Petition. But it does give a lot of different options, and you will, of course, need to decide what you want to take before the game starts and advice. But yeah, I really like Congregation. It's very cool. So let's see. Have we hit everything? We've got Business, Congregation, Farm, Herb Garden, Leyline, Military, Mine, Naval, and Wilderness. That is all the investments. Now, I just want to briefly bring up at this point the idea that you are not locked in to an investment just because you're playing a certain kind of character. Not in any way. You can be a guy who biffs and have a herb garden because your family is always dealt in herbs and you like making potions, maybe. You can have a naval investment and be a mage. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe you are part of an elite group of scouts who utilize their magic to create wind and sneak into enemy territory and scout it out and come back safely. There is nothing in your character which says you have to take a specific investment. Now, there's definitely things which lean that way. For example, if you want to have your voice heard in a Church of Divine Spheres, you can just take a single point of Divine Law. But if you really want to have your words have weight, a congregation probably isn't a bad idea. Same time, you can be a mage who doesn't have access to a ley line. You can just use the mana you have every day. There's no issue with that, but it does mean you won't have as much mana to play with. I would say that it is never a bad idea to take a military or naval investment. If you're completely unsure what to go with, have a look at them. And the reason why I say that is it will make you feel a little bit more invested in the game, because your military company will probably be fighting in big conflicts. Your naval investment will probably be sailing off and defending port. I kind of like it. And also, like, especially because the military investment also gives you that scout the front lines option, which lets you come to game with your own little bit of info specific to where your unit has been that you can tell people about. I think that's really cool. And I'm not just saying people should take military and naval investments because I'm afraid Owens will attack me if I don't encourage more people to take military and naval investments to protect Concord so we don't all die. But honestly, have a look at the investments. I like to look at them kind of at the end once you've already got a real good idea who your character is, and just try them on for size. See what fits, see what feels right, and what feels good mechanically. Mechanics is good, mechanics is important, but it's not the be-all, end-all. Theme is often so much more important than what is mechanically correct. Yeah, do you have anything to add to investments, Luke?
Not for the most part. I mean, the only thing I can really think of is so a lot of investments have different things you can choose for them to do during downtime. So this is between games. From memory, and again, I'm not certain on this one. I've said that a lot today, but it is what it
Look,
is.
just pretend you're Stuart and you're 100% right. Just go for it.
Oh no, there can be only one. From memory, any investment can just do stuff beyond their general function. So you can have, so for example, easy example, I was given by the Shard Circle last game some things that needed to be examined by what I was told was an artisan. Thankfully, I have an in-game brother, another player that has that is himself an artisan. So I said, okay, I know someone who can give this. I give this to him because he's an artisan. That's something he can do. Admittedly, that's kind of off topic to what I was thinking of here. But the point is, your investments can do more than what they say baseline. There's a lot you can do with downtime. Your investments can do things in downtime. They won't always do that. Military and naval investments will be the ones that do this the most. Just doing things. You can also, for some of them, for a little bit of money, well, I say a little bit, it's a lot of money, you can kind of supercharge them for the next event, and you will have more things. So your investments aren't always just, you pick what one you have and that's it. You can choose to do that, 100%, but investments can sometimes do a lot more than you think. So it's worth, when you think you're ready, give them a bit of a read.
I think one of the ways to look at your investment is it is another thing that you can pursue. So if ever you're looking for more goals for your character, getting the resources to upgrade your investment can be like a really big thing, because the resources that are required to upgrade them are rare resources. So that can be a fun goal at game, to try and get a hold of those resources, try and get them so you can upgrade and grow it. Also, definitely always read Winds of the World, because Winds of the World will tell you interesting information which may affect how your investment works. If there's a blight going across all the farms in the area where you have your farm, your farm's probably not going to be doing very good. If there's a surge of magical energy along the ley lines in the area your ley lines are located, you're probably going to have more crystal mana than normal. Like, they are things which are affected by the world around them, and none more so than military and naval investments. If you send your military and naval investment out to fight, and it's a really hard fight, your military naval investment may go to half strength, may be injured, and you're going to have to spend the next game getting the resources to fix it up. And that's fair. That's honestly great. Sure, hey, it means you've got to do a little bit of work, but also, what a cool story you're going to have next game. You and your mates just went and friggin' fought off the Elsevier on top of a giant fortress. How cool is that? You had a street-by-street bloody combat in Andash in the city of Obregon. Like, there are really cool and fun things you can do. And it's really important not to view like all the things that happen to you in your land and your character between game as a negative thing. It's all just an opportunity. You have now something cool to roleplay and talk about. If you were part of, for example, the part of the army which marched into the Zekatal-held Greenweld area, and you saw the cities which have turned into giant plague hearts, yeah, that's messed up. That's a horrible thing. Did you have family in one of those cities? Were you affected by Blasterstrat in the past, or some of your family or friends were? How do you feel about that? Bring that to game. Talk to people about it. Get involved. Or perhaps you've never had any experience with Blasterstrat and you just did, and you saw horrible plague cities. How is that affecting you? Like, this is great stuff. Get involved. Use everything that the ST team give you, because Lord knows they put a hell of a lot of effort into it. And if you can, you should use it. Okay.
One big thing I'm going to put in now, because this is something that was in the most recent changelog, is so going on with the thing of things can affect your investments. That can be anything from ceremonies, whether performed by the Concord or performed by enemies, could affect your investment. Just things happening in the world can affect your investment. Sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. If a simple statement is just, the following investments or people's investments, so on and so forth, say like produce not as much or something along those lines, then that's fine. They're just not as good as they maybe could be. The other thing is if it says your investment is damaged. This is important. This means your investment will not function at all until it is repaired by paying a fee of 2 locks per tier of your investment to the exchange at the next summit. So if you have, say, a tier 1 herb garden, and if something happens in the Winds of the World, and it says your herb garden is damaged, you will not have any herbs upon the next summit other than what you had remaining from the previous one. You will get apparently you're going to be given a tag or some kind of note in your character bag at game that will say your investment is damaged. But that's important. So if it gets damaged, that's bad. That's really, really bad. So do keep an eye on the word damaged when it comes to investments, and make sure that that is a, when it talks about, it gets into kind of like, game effect or game breakdown, this is what's going on. If it says damaged, that's important. It's very important. Because otherwise, you could turn up to game, look in your bag of like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get all my crystal mana from my ley line. Look in, nothing. No new crystal mana except the tag that says it's damaged.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, from a roleplay perspective, it could be maybe your job in the Concord you got recently has required you to be in a different realm doing something, and you come back to find, like, oh yeah, I'll get all my shipments of crystal mana. This is fine. You look, oh no, what happened? It's a negative, but like Stuart has said, you can turn that into an opportunity. You can learn stuff naturally. You don't have to read the Winds of the World per se. You should, because it's awesome. It's all so well written. There's so many opportunities for different roleplay. There's so many.
Absolutely. So, I thought now is probably the time to talk about the spheres.
Absolutely.
Okay, so spheres is sometimes left to the end for me, or sometimes right at the start. It really just depends. And you can do it the same. I thoroughly encourage everyone to read up about the spheres, even if it's just a quick little bit on the wiki with the summaries. But as we were talking about kind of before we really got started, I think the religion system for Concord is one of the best of pretty much anything I've ever seen, like books, movies, TV shows, role-playing games, LARPs. I love it. I love it to death. And I think it is important that you do get at least a little involved with your sphere, because when it comes to Concordian society, regardless of which realm you belong to, the spheres have an important part to play in your life. To get the basics out of the way, each sphere is a set of beliefs, a way of looking at the world and finding your place in the world, what your role in the world is. And they are legitimate places, not necessarily really accessible by us, but they are realms of their own. There is the mortal sphere, there is each of the spheres of all the different Servitas, Panoply, Lumos, Stalia, Anarch, and Arcadian, and then there is the mortal sphere, and then there is the void. And the void is a space in between the spheres. And when you die, if you have been living your life to a sphere, to following those values, your spirit will go into the void and then drift to the sphere which you followed. And once it reaches it, you will be reborn. We can see into the void. The mages have the ability to see into the void, and they can see this, and they have actually witnessed, some player characters have witnessed this actually happening character. So it is fact. I mean, you can still disbelieve it, but as far as we can see, it's fact. Now, the people who do not follow the sphere of their choice, or purposefully go off and refuse to follow a sphere, have the danger of not being reborn, being cast adrift in the void. So, with that in mind, the priests which are trying to help you follow your sphere, and they don't necessarily mind which sphere it is, they just want you to find the right sphere to follow, have a real reason to do it, because they are saving you from being floating endlessly in a void, or perhaps even worse, being captured by necromancers and used to fuel horrible experiments or reanimate corpses. Who knows, you know? So that's purely from a, hey, there's a real reason to care about the spheres, this is why the priests care about it. If they're inquisitioning you, it's not that they're like, heretic, burn the heretic, unburn the unbeliever. It's more so, hey, we think that you might be an unrepentant heretic, and we need to make certain that if you are, you're on the right way to good. And if you are unrepentant, then we will have to excommunicate you, which means, like, mechanically speaking, you lose an investment. So, serious thing, right? Not to say that it cannot be a lot of fun being a heretic and hiding that from people, but different story. But if you do decide to go the way of the masses and go choose a sphere, it can be so helpful to your roleplay experience. Like, a farmer can be a very different person depending on what sphere they follow, right? Like, a follower of Arcadian, that farmer might have gone off their own, come from a strong family, and could have stayed within that family and farmed their lands, but instead went off on their own and started a new farm in an area maybe prone to attacks, or without fertile soil, which will take years to get into shape. He is fighting a hard battle. He's taking the road not commonly used, and he's doing it because he knows he's strong enough to do it. A follower of Anarch, who is a farmer, they might shake things up. Maybe they try and start a farm co-op to fight against companies and big businesses which are trying to control farms. Maybe they're starting a farm in animals or crops which are strange and not native to their area, because they know that a change in what has happened in the past is needed. A change can bring benefit to the people around them. A farmer of Servitas would be someone who is farming for the community. They're farming because they want to provide food to those who need it. It's not like they're necessarily giving all their crops away, but they're making certain their food tries to go to people who need it. they support their local community. If Dave, the farmer next door, has a bad season, maybe he'll provide seed crop to him and give him a bit of food to get him by. Like, there are different ways of approaching the same role depending on what sphere you have. And that sphere is so helpful as a thing to come back to, depending on like what's going on around you. If ever there is a situation which makes your character distressed, makes them angry, makes them sad, makes them confused, you know what you should do? Maybe you should talk to a priest of your sphere. Not only will you have a fun little role-playing moment with another priest, they'll have an awesome role-playing moment, because that's half the reason they're here, and now you've got a way to go forward. You've thought about things. You've got a character arc. So I thoroughly encourage people to look at the other spheres. There is one for you, and honestly, there's probably 3 for you. And don't just pick the one which seems the most obvious. Actually read through them and figure out maybe there's one which fits you better. The farmer option is a great example, right? I reckon Servitas is probably the easiest one which fits a farmer like a glove. But how cool is an idea of an Arcadian farmer? Like one who's fighting a battle, but the battle isn't one which is fought with like steel and blood. It's fought by eking out a hard existence. One that wasn't the easy way to go because you want to stand on your own 2 feet. Or like an anarch farmer? What a cool and unique idea! Like, not every warrior needs to be Arcadian. Not every merchant needs to be Panoply. Not every knight needs to be freaking like Lumos. Like, there are wonderful ideas and explorations in theme and in philosophy with your characters. So look through the quick part of look at the Wikipedia and the Divine Spheres, and they've just got little snapshots of each of them. And if you want to dive more in depth, absolutely, as always, have a look at the Concord Almanac, which goes far more deeply into things. But just for a quick look, the Wikipedia will absolutely give you what you need. And yeah, challenge yourself. Challenge yourself not to pick the first thing and try things on for size. And if the first thing does feel right, go for it. That's fine. But try things on. Because I feel sometimes treading the road which is less traveled can really bring things out in your character and create a character who is more fun and more exciting to play. But maybe I just like playing more difficult roles like an idiot.
No, but that's the thing though, and this is kind of why I very much wanted you to come onto this, is because whilst, as I said in the messages when I was getting you into this, is we both have similar ways of viewing things, but we also have different ways of viewing things. None of that is bad. That's just a difference from player to player. Again, as you just said, you might be a person that prefers to travel the road more commonly followed, or you may choose to trek something a bit more rocky, a bit more unseen, a little bit more difficult. It's entirely up to you.
Absolutely. And don't forget, atheism and heresy is absolutely a valid choice. Like, totally a valid choice. Just be aware of the consequences of that choice. As I was saying before we started, I know several people who are heretics. I know several people I know one person who is an atheist, and they are all hiding it in various ways. But it can be a real fun journey, and honestly, it could be a really fun character arc. I mean, you could become a well-known person, you could have many friends, and then it comes out that you're a heretic, you get Inquisition, then you straight up go, screw you and screw you all. You know, like I'm doing the right thing, you guys are all wrong. I'll show you all. It's the cool things. Just keep in mind that should be a long-term goal. Don't aim for a first game or second game. Slowly let that stuff out. Let it be fun. Because if you come to your first game and you start screaming about how the divine spheres are wrong and they're false, like you're just gonna get Inquisition excommunicated. People aren't gonna like twitch at all from it. You're just a crazy person. Let the crazy slowly out. Let it slowly out.
There is one more thing I'd throw in as well, because this is another perception of faith and what is heresy. Is in the world of Esterra, where Concord takes place, there are other religions. Now, this is a very important point that has been made much more clear as of recent. It is not heresy to say for other religions to exist. That is not heresy in and of itself. It is heretical for as part of the Concord to go against the spheres, to again, read the wiki. It does list more or less what is heresy. For example, we have a nation in Concord called the Dendar Nations. They're very like Greek, very, very much Greek. They have gods. They have their own powers and such. Them having that doesn't mean it's heresy. It's just a different religion to us. Now, if we had Concordian citizens that started to, preach that religion, that then maybe turns to heresy a bit. But that's a road we haven't crossed yet. That's a road we may cross in the future. So think about, especially if your character is a priest, or just very religious, what are their views on other religion systems, on the possibility of actual deities, of other powers? That's worth thinking about too.
So, it looks like I've just done a quick search, and crimes against the spheres are listed, just for funsies. Crimes against spheres are crimes of heresy. This includes proselytizing a different religion to the divine spheres, spirit harm, and necromancy. These crimes are generally administered by the Church through the powers of Inquisition or excommunication, but also carry a criminal charge as well, although one that will be heavily informed by the findings of the Church. These definitions of crime are in the process of being made universal across the Concord. However, a shortage of Concordians and deep cultural histories makes this a piecemeal effort. This understanding will be more stringent in the capital of passage and less enforced the further away you travel, although regions may have their own understanding of what is and what is not a crime.
There you are.
So, interesting. So that is the spheres, I guess. So the last kind of thing I figured we might talk about would be kind of out of character stuff. You've made a character. You've submitted it with all your experience spent, with your investment chosen. You know what nation you're from. You know who you are. What kind of important out of character things are required for attending, say, your first game, your second game, third game? And of course, I guess we could once again, for the third time drop, read the Concord event guide, for the love of God. Very important. But like just little things, I guess. I would say, for example, test your damn tent. If you haven't camped in your tent before, make damn certain that you know how to set it up. Because trust me, it's a lot easier figuring all of that stuff out before you get to site. Especially, for example, it didn't come with pegs for some reason, or was missing some. That can be a hell of a time. And that honestly goes for anyone who is camping ever. Before you go out on the road, just set up your tent one more time. Just, even if it's just like the day before game, just go out there, set it up, inspect it for mold, inspect it for rips, make sure you've got all your pegs. I speak from experience. It's not a good time if there's something missing. And also, again, if you haven't camped before, also make certain you've got lots of blankets. Blankets for the floor stops the cold of the the ground getting in, and the ground will get really cold. The entire frigging property will get freezing cold. You can never have too many blankets. Get yourself like a air lilo, air mattress, or a camp stretcher. Even yoga mats. Just make certain you try everything out before you do it, because if you lie on wood or cork or carpet even with it and it feels too uncomfortable, guess what? It's going to be way bloody worse when you're on the ground in the paddock. Millions of blankets, tons of blankets. So I say you should bring more blankets. Get yourself a good rated sleeping bag. Make sure you bring a cloak. The two biggest things I'd recommend people get for in-character kit is a cloak and a belt. Second thing is an in-character water bottle. And just remember, like, it doesn't need to be like a fancy leather water bottle. Just get yourself like a thermos, which doesn't look terrible. Like, if it's just all black or it's all steel, like, it shouldn't look out of character. It'll be fine. You just need something which isn't like neon colored or something which is obviously plastic. Get something which looks vaguely in character. And in character water bottles, honestly, they're absolutely amazing, because you're going to get thirsty, and having to go back to your damn camp every 2 seconds to get water is going to be hell, especially if you're out of character camping. So yeah, water bottles, very good. Cloak, very good. It'll keep you dry when it rains. It'll keep the sun off you. When it's sunny, just invest in a good cloak, something which is rainproof. If you've got one, like when it's not raining and it's light, that's okay. Just make certain you've got like a good wool poly blend, or if like something waxed, oilskin, whatever works for you. Just make certain that it can take a downpour and you're not going to feel terrible.
Suggestion that's been thrown forward is have something you can hold. You can put your weapon in rather than just carrying it in your hand all the time. So like a frog or some kind of loop. You can put your weapon in.
Frog, scabbard, loop. Yeah, absolutely. Because honestly, if you just tuck it in your belt, it will do damage to your weapon, because it'll compress that foam latex in and will be a bad time. Very good advice, Tim. I need to track down one of the 2 loops I have because I've lost them. I'll buy some more.
With the loops, by the way, it just occurred to me. You really can just ad hoc makeshift your own. Just get some decent thick cord. Get whatever belt you're going to wear. Tie it to that. Grab your weapon, do a loop around it, and just make sure it isn't ridiculously tight, that you can easily draw it or stow it easily enough. And just having something simple like that, just temporary, is, until you can get something, say as a frog or a scabbard or a better made or more appropriate loop, is better than not having it at all or sticking it through your belt.
Yeah, no disagreement there. What else?
Okay. I'm going to mention this, and hopefully I'm not using the incorrect name or term here, but storm pegs for your tent. Yeah. Because of the last summit, and I was in the Shard Circle tent area when this happened. Occasionally, Bonington gets really, really windy. We had a bunch of tents come up from the ground and go flying for a bit. It was bad because the ground was very moist.
The last 3 games I have attended to at Boddington, at some point, I have had to hold down a gazebo or a tent and get absolutely soaked while doing it. Yep. And these were ones which were actually pegged down properly as well. So it's worth mentioning, storm pegs, nice big thick pegs. Also, don't do a Stuart. I got very lazy at game. I don't know, like 2 games ago or something, and I didn't bother pegging down my guy ropes like an idiot.
Oh.
I didn't have enough pegs, so I thought it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Didn't ask anyone else, and Aaron Apollos, lovely, wonderful human being that he is, has kind of walked over to where my tent was, walked back and gone, oh, hey Stuart, look, don't panic. Nothing's like terrible right now, but I just need you to come with me for a second. And I've walked over and I've seen my tent still on the ground, but literally being pushed flat by the wind. Like it's being pushed flat into the side. And it was at that point that I borrowed some pegs from Aaron and I pegged on my guy ropes. And wouldn't you know it, that was enough to stop it from almost blowing away. So yeah, peg your guy ropes, do it properly, use good pegs. Do not underestimate Boddington. I've seen too many gazebos and too many tents destroyed. And also, they can be quite dangerous when they take off. You might take someone out, so for the love of God, peg it down well.
In addition to that, if you can get your hands on some, and get them in whatever vehicle you're bringing down, if you've got like cinder blocks or just big heavy things you can tie stuff down to, in addition, just anything to keep that tent stable that doesn't look too out of place. I mean, ultimately safety is the bigger concern here, but yeah, not having tent shaped projectiles blowing all over the place is always something to avoid.
I will also at this point spruik Claire Stacey's amazing checklist, which gets posted before literally every single LARP, which is I'm sure we can find a link to in post, but it's honestly the best checklist I've ever seen, and it will go through literally everything you may possibly need, and is something that I absolutely check every single game. I just gotta be out for 2 secs.
Mm-hmm. For those of you that have stick with this so far for the whole thing, thank you so much for throwing in, and again to those in the chat of the Concord team, thank you so much for chucking in reminders, extra points, things to worry about, things to clarify, correcting us when we are incorrect. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that. Just had a call come through. But yeah, definitely recommend clear Stacey's checklist. Thoroughly recommend. I'm sure we can find a link to it. It has pretty much everything you'll need to pack. And every game, I certainly go over it again and find something I've forgotten to take.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think what else is there need to worry about. I think that's pretty much it. That's most of the stuff I generally go through.
Yeah, the only other thing I think I'd want to again touch on to just kind of briefly explain is the war bands and the sects.
Oh yes, I forgot about that.
This is probably the only other thing. So there are two kinds of bands or groups, or whatever term you wish to use. The general term is band. There are two kinds. There is the war band, and there are sects. War bands are groups of basically military fighters. These are of players. There are mechanical benefits for having a band. This can be in the form of certain magic items. This can also be certain ceremonies. Basically, if you want to make a company of warriors, or a knightly order, or well, just about anything, really, you can do it through a band, and there will be benefits for that. There are plenty, such as the Iron Valley Vipers. Recently, of the last game, I bonded some people together to a band to make the Jumping Aliphae of the Andash. Plug, we're awesome. But there are varying kinds. This is a great way to mechanically have benefit for having you and your group of friends to have something. it is noted everyone in a warband must be from the same realm. They're not cross-realm. At least not yet. I am hoping. I would like that to become a thing in the future, but, for now, it must be from the same realm. There is nothing to say you can't say have a warband for one realm and then have a warband for a different realm that is pretty much the exact same thing. You could totally do that. There's nothing to say you can't. Sects are a similar thing, except this is for divine law and religion and priests. Members that are bonded to a sect must also be from the same realm. And when the sect is formed for the first time, 2 spheres are chosen. These are the spheres that sect is devoted to. All priests, or those with divine law, that are bound to this sect, whether at the time of its creation or later, must have ranks in divine law of one of those 2 spheres. This is how you perform the really big, cool ceremonies, making armies out of trees, or storms, or making fortresses of gold. They're so awesome.
The big ceremonies are freaking amazing, absolutely.
So yeah, that's pretty much bands and sects. And same thing as I said with having a warband in each realm that are effectively the same thing. You can kind of do the same thing with warbands and sects. So you can say, from this town in Greenfield, we have a warband to represent the warriors from there, and we have a sect to represent the priests. But they are ultimately the same, say, company or force or organization. But this is how you represent kind of the different sides to it.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. Yeah. Works like a charm, honestly. I will admit I haven't had a huge amount to do with sects or warbands, mainly because they often get organized kind of after character creation. But I do know that they're pretty amazing. I do know that there are magical items which can be crafted to enhance warbands.
Indeed.
So absolutely, it's well worth it.
It is important to note, however, you do not have to be in a warband.
No, absolutely not. Most people aren't.
Yeah. For a sect, you also don't have to be in a sect, because there are ceremonies you can pretty easily perform on your own, whether through your own divine law ranks in, as it were, or having items to assist you with it, which there are varying kinds. But with sects, to perform the really big ones, for that one you're going to need sects. That is important to note. But again, there are various sects that exist in Concord already. There's nothing to say you can't find people that aren't in a sect already, because that's another thing. You can only be in one sect and one warband. And you can form a sect for which you need a minimum of 2 people. Same thing with a warband, minimum of 2. So you can just make one, and then you can gather more people to your banner, or to your particular order, or spherical following. Wow, that's a weird thing I just said.
It is a wonderful way of creating a connection between characters that is stronger than hey, we're pals. I mean, if you're going into battle, you're going to be going into battle as a friggin' warband. You're going to be going in together, and you will more than likely fight together as a cohort. So I love the idea of things. And with sects, it's pretty much the same, except instead of battle, it's to do with religion. If you're going to be doing a ceremony, you're more than likely going to be doing it in your sect. If you're going to be pushing for a certain view to be upheld by the church, you're going to be doing it as a sect. There is power in groups. So it's a very cool thing.
Oh, yes, very important point. Thank you. So, with the changes to how sort of the game shake up, at least of recent. So when you have to perform, so the creation of bands and sects must now be done at game. You cannot do that, between games. You have to do that at game. Same thing with bringing people into your warband or sect. You must do that at game. And of course, you need a sect or a priest that can do it by themselves to bond you to that warband or sect. So there's a whole... that's, again, the beauty of Concord. All these gears just winding and turning and interacting with each other. Everything connects to something else in some way, shape, or form.
There are so many things to do at game. You just have to be willing to get involved with them. You have to be willing to find them and pursue them. I cannot really see how anyone can go to Concord and have be bored. I can see you having a bad time, but I can't see you going to Concord and being bored unless you're actively not pursuing things. And that's the thing. It's to find out who you are, to have goals, to know what you're looking to be involved in, and you will find it and have a great time.
I can speak to that.
The only reason... go on.
I can speak to this. So, the previous summit, I had the goal of getting elected the senator for Yandashi Tribelands. I didn't get it. I was both in and out of character, a bit dejected, because it kind of revealed some ugly truths. Which is, again, very much a roleplay thing. Very much that. It was like, okay, one part of my brain was like, I am upset with what just happened. And the other part of my brain is, yeah, but that's the game. And that's kind of awesome that dynamic existed. So at that point, all my plans just blew away in the wind. I had nothing. The next day rolled around, and I'm just kind of moseying around talking to people. And then someone comes up to me and says, hey, we're getting... mages together to go on a conflux. So we're going to go get this lost tablet to try and learn a new spell. Like, we're going to need people. Do you want to come along? I said, yeah. All right, sure. We'll go over, get everything ready. We go in, we do it. It was my first time going out onto any kind of battlefield. It was terrifying and awesome, especially as a non-com. It was rad. I might have the taste for it now. Which is not good. It is good. It's also not good, not for my mortality. So we went through, got the tablet, came back, and I'm like, cool. We get it back to the shard circle, dimension, as it were. And I'm like, cool. I start sitting down in the shard circle, not doing nothing. I'm like, cool, that was fun. I have really nothing to do now. And then about 10 minutes go by, and our elected Archmage gets handed a bag. It's like, this is something that is a part of this greater quest. You're going to need to find some people to solve this. And part of it was needing someone that could see with eyes that others don't, or something along those lines. Which basically just said, and I guess for those that don't know, which again, no shame if you didn't, I myself, both in and out of game, am completely blind. So kind of pointed at me of, we need him. So I get handed a bag with a puzzle in it. I'm like, cool. I've now been delegated a pretty big thing, and I chose to take that task. And that ended up being the rest of my day and most of the night was solving that puzzle, getting people to help with that puzzle. Like, it went from, I have nothing, to, oh god, I'm running on minimum sleep, I've not drank enough water, I'm hungry, I'm tired, but I must keep working.
It is absolute, like, the storytellers will give you content to use, but it is up to you on what you do with it, right? And like, I also like that fact, like, you made a goal, and it was a very ambitious goal, if I may say so. And this is why when I was talking about goals before, I'm like, have several goals. Have a short-term and have a long-term goal, because you striking out as a senator does not actually mean that that goal is done and dust unless you wanted it to be. It's a long-term goal. It could be 2 games, 3 games, 4 games from now. But a short-term goal of getting more involved with the shard circle, doing like attending a conflux, like those are cool goals, and like those are achievable goals. For you, maybe attending like a conflux is a bit bigger than than a minor goal, but I'm freaking stoked you managed it. Like one of the cool things I think is that they've recently brought in is that they are doing little kind of mini briefings before skirmishes, confluxes, and the likes, which you can opt into, which will pretty much advise what is kind of going to happen in a non-thematic way. So, say, hey, there is going to be like light or serious combat. Now you know, if you're a non-combat person, there is that risk going into it. This conflux involves large quantities of like running around. Like it's kind of good. Like the people who are 100% super fit killing machines, like they don't need to look at it. They're fine. Whatever happens, they'll probably be fine. But people who have disabilities or simply don't want some content, like it's a good thing that they can go, yep, okay, yeah, this conflux isn't for me, and take a step out, or go, hey, yeah, I feel safe enough to attend this conflux. So I think that's a really cool thing, and that's a good way of removing a little ableism out of LARP. And it's not like it affects anyone who is 100% able-bodied in any way whatsoever, because you don't need to read the damn extra briefing. Yeah, so I love it. I love it. I love to see our LARP changing in positive ways.
Yeah. I guess the one thing I can say I'm a little sad about coming out of that conflux, and this is mainly for the people that know what I mean when they say this. I got my first traumatic wound. It was the cut on my head. And I'm like, oh, I wanted something more terrifying. Because that's such a cool... Cause I guess, so to very briefly kind of explain this, when you come out of a conflux, whether it's a skirmish, a conflux, or major conflux, depending on how hurt you got overall, which you'll be asked when you are exiting the fight, depending on that, you will be given a card that a surgeon can have a look at and read. And it could be, and it will give you a roleplay prompt, and it could even give some mechanic stuff like a cut to the head, or a severely broken ribs, or some kind of horrifying curse has been put on you, and now you're a warmongering savage, not of your own accord. There's wounds, the traumatic and spiritual wounds are one of the coolest parts of this, because it can throw a wrench into everything.
Absolutely agree, 100%. I love the inclusion of traumatic injuries, spiritual wounds, and the like. And honestly, the best thing is that I can finally see the same kind of cool hospital roleplay I've seen in Eurolarp come to Perth. And I was honestly never quite sure how we would do that. And it's been implemented perfectly in my book. So yeah, fantastic. I love it, love it, love it, love it.
I can definitely say, kind of like you, Stuart, is when I first got into LARP, it was through War Hearts, and very much kind of going into it knowing this is very LARP light, or was rather. Very much looking at it now, Concord is what I wanted. It is everything I wanted. It is the opportunity that you can literally do just about anything, and there are ways to be anything. And there is going to be content that you can go out and fight. You can stay back at the city and just still do stuff, find things, make money, lose money, live and die. There's so many things you can do, to the point that and I've said it several times, and I'm going to say it again because I believe it. Concord has become the premier LARP of WA. It really is. It just does everything. It may not be for everybody. There are plenty of other LARPs out there that do things differently, and that's fine. Different games appeal to different folks, or sometimes you're just in the mood for a little bit of just, us versus them, red versus blue stuff. There's loads of different things you can find. But I think Concord does everything, and it does it in such a way that nothing else in WA has done it before. It's awesome.
Yeah, certainly not at the scale, and certainly plenty of things are quite unique to it. I'm very glad that I'm back with Concord, and I'm looking very much forward to hopefully traumatizing a few players come next Concord game.
I feel like I've just been threatened, but okay.
Look, what is the purpose of an NPC if not to traumatize players?
You are not incorrect, and I agree.
Look, thank you, Tim. Tim's just said, glad to have you back, Stuart.
I agree
Love
entirely.
you too, Tim. Look, hey, I absolutely loved that we've now had the Grain and Grail stuff come to light, and I think it is a wonderful reminder that there is content available at Concord, and it is open for people to interact with. But if you simply interact with it when it is around, then you may have a surprise later on. You may have missed opportunities. It is up to the players to decide what they want to do with things. And there has been lots of content thrown at you guys. So we will just see how things go. There's some great roles that I'm looking forward to that I cannot and would never spoil. But I certainly have many reasons to look forward to the coming game, and I can tell you with 100% honesty, the players do too.
All right, I think that is everything. Most other things, again, this is more to the new players. Most other things you can really find through perusing the wiki in various ways, in different aspects. Just kind of go and dive when you feel like it. Again, or just asking questions. There are various ways to get more or less information. It is entirely up to you. Yeah, I guess if chat has any quick questions, anything they think we missed, throw them in now. We'll get to them, and once that is done, I believe that is another episode done and in the books. And I think this went incredibly well.
I agree. If I can just quickly say to anyone who's listening, if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. I'm always happy to help. It is honestly a pleasure to help the LARP community in the small way that I can. So hit me up if you want character creation advice or just simple small questions. Additionally, further to the wiki, check out the wiki. It's really good. Do keep in mind that if ever you want to deep dive into anything in the wiki, hit up the almanac or the player's guide. Player's guide is for anything mechanically related. The almanac is for anything thematic. There is so much lore to read. I do recommend that you do check the almanac for the nation that you are creating a character for. Oh, here we go. We've had Superhero ask, what is your favorite sphere? Would you like to start that one off, Luke?
Oh, okay. So, for myself, again, this is difficult because I like them all in different ways. But I think it would have to be Stalia. The idea of very much a sphere of knowledge, a sphere of seeking knowledge, sharing knowledge, and teaching, and the hard logical truth of things. Not necessarily to be mean with it, but just it sucks, but this is a thing. And beyond that, just searching for hidden knowledge and secret things and keeping that knowledge safe. It's such a dual-edged sword of the sharing of knowledge, and sometimes maybe even the hiding of some of it too. It's such a fun thing. Also, just like the stars and like scales kind of aspect. I always kind of get like a cool, like ancient sort of dragon or like naga kind of vibe from it. It's cool. All right, I really really like it.
Oh, I love that little Lumos will see me through until Stalia can take over. God, that's a great little saying. Oh, I love that to absolute bits.
That's fair.
Oh, well, for me, it is absolutely no contest because while I do enjoy what each of the spheres represent, one just screams my name. And for anyone who knows me and knows how much I love being center of attention, it probably won't be that great a surprise. I love Panoply. Like, it is such a well-designed sphere. Like, to me, someone would have had to take a good chunk of time to really think about this and create it because, like, from a very, very, like, casual glance, you're like, if it is the sphere of ambition, like, if it's the sphere of glory, then surely it's just a sphere of selfishness. It's a sphere of arrogance. But, like, it's so much more than that. Like, the doctrine of Panoply being, here we go. At no point should you not be reaching for more as this drive will push you forwards. Like, that's great. That's like trying to turn like lust for power into something positive, and it is because like it's all about like reaching and reaching. But if you fail, then that should not destroy your dream. It should be a lesson that you learn from so that you can get greater. And that idea that when you reach your success, when you're winning, when you're making lots of money, or when you're a powerful general with armies at your command, or even something humble like when you're the best farmer in the world, you shouldn't be sitting on your laurels. You should be spreading that out to everyone around you. You should be using your power, because if you're not using your power, it's being wasted. And finding a way to turn ambition and drive to become the best into a positive thing that helps those around you. Chef kiss, beautiful.
Oh yeah.
My favorite little tidbit that I'll finish with is I love the Shrine of Panoply because it has a little take a penny, leave a penny tray in it. And the funniest thing, I think, were people were stealing from that tray thinking, ah ha ha, we're stealing from Panoply, we're stealing from the rich, not realizing that is literally what it is there for. Mm-hmm. It is meant for people who have a lot of money, who have benefited, to leave coins there for those who need it to take. And I think that was the most funniest thing I heard. Hearing people talk quietly about how proud they were that they'd stolen from Panoply and not realizing they were literally doing what Panoply stands for.
I definitely love that. That was something that kind of hit me as well. Like when coming across people that are playing Priests of Panoply, that are themselves like being very greedy and being very, like gathering all this power and wealth and are just hoarding it and not doing anything with it. It's that thing of like, I find that interesting because like you're not following Panoply. Panoply is called the sphere of glory, because it's the sphere of seeking glory, of drive, of achievement, and you keeping that drive, keep going. There's always another step. In a way,
yes,
it's almost perfectionist in a negative way, which is so interesting.
I could legit talk for hours about Panoply. I love it to absolute bits, even though I keep pronouncing Panoply differently every time I say it. I legit have to just pin Tim down at some point and tell him, like, you've got to tell me how to pronounce it properly because I feel like I'm doing it wrong every time. But I love it. I love it to bits. There's another question here. Actually, no. Before I say that, I love this. If you end up at the bottom, you only have up to go.
Absolutely.
It's great for Panoply. Yeah, if you fail, then you've only got more stuff for you Man, I don't know how to pronounce it. Fine, I'll have to hit Skittles.
For Panoply, failure is not the end. It is merely a
No!
roadblock to. It is merely a roadblock to achievements,
It's
and
just
roadblocks can always be leapt over.
Panoply. Okay, cool. Thank you, Skittles. Appreciate it, mate. It's pronounced panoply, and I'm gonna just repeat that on end so I don't make that mistake again.
Mm-hmm.
But regional dialects are valid. Ah, we can pronounce it anyway. What confirmation from Skittles? It doesn't matter. Regional dialects.
Oh
yes,
god, I'm
boy.
gonna hear someone say panoply at some point, and it's gonna hurt me.
It's valid. They're all valid. It's just a small section of the of Concord. It's Backwater Hicks who pronounce it like that. All right. What's this? Hard one for Stuart, but he's welcome to try and answer. What mysteries of the world have burrowed into your brain?
This hasn't been directed at me, but I still feel kind of targeted by this one.
Absolutely, go for it, my friend. If you've got something to say,
yeah, I'll throw in for this. The one that's really kind of hit me is what is it? It's the Idrian Call.
Yes, I was going to talk about them too. Please go. Yeah.
Like the idea of there are these mages that are just up at the north in towers of ice and magic, and it's just a simple statement of they only allow those amongst their midst that have achieved the heights that they have. What does that mean?
The thing I love most about them is, like, if you cast spells, right, in the Concord, and you cast them using a sphere in your chant, you are technically committing heresy. Like, because magic comes from the mortal sphere. It doesn't come from, like, Arcadian or Lumos or something like that, right? The Idrian Cabal, as per the Almanac, are powerful wizard priests. And they were so powerful they moved from their own home and raised spires out of pure magical might to have peace and quiet to study existence. Now, as far as I'm aware, so far, we've only had one, and I could be wrong, I don't think there was one last game, but we've only had one interaction with the Idrian Cabal, and it was the NPC I played, which was an apprentice. And they turned up to offer a deal, a research deal, which unfortunately was turned down. But I had a brief experience with a few different players. I joined in on the Wizard tournament. But the Idrian Cabal is so interesting because that character was an apprentice. They were an apprentice. Now, I do not consider it spoilers to say that they were, when they're in Concord, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful mage was in Concord. And this is the thing. The Idrian Cabal, while few in number, have immense magical might. And we know so little about them. All we know is that they're incredibly powerful. They have their own way of looking at the world with this combination of both magical power and like religion, and that we are well advised to treat them with respect, because if they decide they don't like us, we would not want that power directed at us. But like, that's the thing, we can only learn more about them. It's mysterious. We don't know much about. So, hey, fingers crossed. Maybe in a game coming soon, we may learn a little more.
I want it. Like that. That's one of the few things that I very much of recent have been delving into, like, arcane and divine research myself, just a lot. Part of that inspired by the Idrian Cabal, of like, okay, what could it mean by reaching the same heights, and like going through my brain and coming up with ideas, and then kind of floating it past Skittles on the occasion of like, is this even a thing? And getting told the best thing, which is, it doesn't currently exist. that's the best thing I can hear from any kind of storyteller or game runner is it doesn't currently exist. So yeah, like getting involved with magic stuff is like, oh, this is so satisfying because like going back to the number puzzle thing for figuring out the new spell. I was very happy to be a part of that. I'm very happy I could facilitate that happening, or being a part of that happening. Absolutely. My strength lies in research. My strength lies in delving into different lore and making connections and doing that kind of thing. I very much describe myself as a parasitic amoeba, just adding to its biomass. It sounds horrible, but that's kind of the truth. I love information. I love new lore.
So, on the note of information coming to a conclusion, Superhero has mentioned the Idrian Cabal come from the far south. Elsevier ships come from the far south.
Oh,
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Now, as far as I'm aware, there is no current link between the Elsevier and the Idrian Cabal. But yeah, hey, that's something.
Oh, I hate that that's in my head now. No, but that's cool though. That's exactly what I'm talking about. This is stuff of like, oh yeah, all that's again. I thought the Idrian Cabal was in the north, not the south.
The thing that that always like that's stuck in my head that I really love, and maybe it's just because I am truly a gothic edgelord at heart, is the Onyx aristocracy.
Yes.
And I love the Onyx aristocracy, but more and more we seem to be seeing intelligent undead leading the Onyx aristocracy. So riddle me this. If souls go to the spheres and are reborn, but Onyx aristocracy are dead people brought back to life and seem to have intelligence, seem to have at least some kind of memories of her old life, because you were seeing like Death Knights and they're dressed up in armor and they seem to know how to fight. Where are those souls coming from? Are they completely soulless? But then how do they have a link to their past lives? Are those souls being taken from the spheres before they could be reborn? Are those souls purely just the souls which were caught in between the spheres? What is powering these intelligent undead? Do they have souls? And in that case, is resurrection possible? Could you retrieve a soul from a sphere and bring someone back to life when they've died? Like, I think there is a whole bunch of really interesting stuff which skirts on the edge or just straight up kind of pertains to necromancy. And I think that people kind of have to have a strong think about where the line between necromancy and understanding how souls works. And it's got to be some pretty brave people who do it, because if you get caught doing something that everyone thinks is necromancy, could be an excommunication.
I agree.
But I'm really interested to see more about that, or maybe, who knows, there are people who are already doing it and they're hiding it away from everyone else.
Quite possible.
I don't get to see this stuff. I'm an NPC. I only hear about things secondhand. So, hey, who knows? Have to see.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The research of the distinction between the practice of necromancy and the understanding of the soul, like, you got to be careful with that, and you got to make sure, like, and this is a part of, just to kind of like touch on some stuff that's happening at game. It's just cool. The idea of researching the void or the null or oblivion, that space, and researching what is it, what's going on in it, and making sure that we've got the priests and the church is okay with this. Like, there's a whole process of linking the two organizations together and saying, okay, put together some kind of council that can make sure, or just put them through Inquisition, just to make sure the people that are doing this for the right reasons, and it's not being done for necromancy. Like, again, the gears mesh together. Everything connects. It's all, there's so many cool things.
Like, I could talk about that stuff forever, but I will just throw one more little thing out there, and this is aimed at Superhero, who said this stream got incredibly heretical incredibly quickly. Is it heresy if your job is as a priest, the entire point of guiding your supplicants is to get their spirit, their soul, to go into a sphere, right? To get reborn. So is it heresy if their soul doesn't get to the sphere and is caught in between? Is it heresy to help that soul get to a sphere?
No,
what's the difference?
That is an interesting one. That is an interesting one. That I like. That's solid.
See, I love it. Anyway, here we go. Concord LARP Skills, I'm guessing, is said, what do you think is missing from Sight? Oh god, that's a hard one.
So I'm going to give a joke answer first, because it amuses me. Honestly, I just want more sticks and more shrine, personally.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Look, I think most of what is needed at site is already known. Like, in goals, at some point we have lovely showers. That would be great. Incredibly expensive, incredibly hard to do. That'd be great. Stuff that's already been worked on. More paving. If my dumbass remembers, I'll load up the back of my car with a few more bricks, so at least I can give some bricks to site. Continuing to work on the roads to make them drivable during winter. Again, already happening before every single game. Fantastic stuff. Like, the stuff that has been added to site in the last couple of years is nuts and is amazing. And it's stuff that my dumbass would have never considered. Toilet block and the urinal, just brilliant. I love it. No more temporary toilets. My god, thank god. Yeah, I heard about that. Sam and Aaron, we grabbed a whole bunch. Guy gave a hand loading up some of them to Ute. I'm stoked about the pavers. It's absolutely what we need, because when it gets muddy and we've got heaps of people, it just gets churned up. Sorry, just from the chat, Tim has advised 1 ton of pavers got delivered.
Yeah, I saw it.
To site. Fantastic.
For me, kind of from an accessibility point of view, I find getting around site is actually really difficult. Mainly because a lot of the locations, and actually good that these guys are in chat now, they can kind of hear this, because I've been trying to find the time to get this in a physical form and sent off, because of the 2 summits I've been to so far, the layout of passage was different for both of them. And if you can't see, memorizing where things are and where you need to go, like, that's a big thing. Some things have stayed static, like the toilet box staying where it is because it can't be moved, obviously. But like the shard circle stayed where it was. The witch's hat, the food truck that gets set up, that's in the same place. Some things are in the same place, and that's helpful. But the idea of these pathers and basically saying, if you're on these pathers, you're on the walkways, you're in the streets. So for me, it's going from grass to pathers and going, cool, follow the pathers. Go this way, follow the pathers that way. That's, I think that could, purely for myself, that could be a massive help. The only other thing I could say I would like to add to side, and this is a case of when money is a thing and becomes, more usable or can be spent, is having a building for Senate, having a building for the Shard Circle, having more permanent structures is only going to make this cooler, because that means those are structures that could also be used by other LARPs in the future.
Permanent structures are definitely a hard one, because pretty much every permanent structure has been put in place has either been bought and dropped down. So mainly we're talking about the rooms at God, which people can sleep in, and the sea containers and the toilet blocks when we're talking about that, or has been built by at least one very passionate person. So having a building constructed for pure purpose, it's a very big ask because it's quite an expensive affair, and it's something which requires a lot of effort for people to do and not necessarily own. Like Mark building a house for himself is cool. Is fine because the dude's going to go down there every weekend. He's going to find materials and he's going to construct it because it's where he's going to live. Doing it for the Senate is a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Tim has just commented, Sam has plans for a permanent Senate in the long dark. Cool. So, there you go. Hey, there is some plans. My question is, and I do want to preface this first by saying, I am a guy who is very lucky in that I don't really have any medical issues. Sure, I'm a little short-sighted. Sure, my back hurts and my knees hurt, but besides that, I'm totally fine. But would something like signposts with words written plain for people to see, and maybe like a little bit of braille leading in the general direction of each of the camps from each of the tents, would that be something that would be helpful for yourself?
That's a good idea. I was thinking in general, like just having signs in general, just to add to the aesthetic. But no, like adding braille and stuff to that. No, that's taking it a step further. No, that's a cool idea, and that.
I mean, I know it's difficult. It's more specific to you, but like what I was thinking is, it isn't that difficult. All you really need to do is use a friggin' online translator of braille, and then order a sticker with braille on it, so something's poking out of a damn sticker, and plaster it on wherever the hell the sign is. So it is a thought, and it is probably, honestly, if we look at the reality of the situation, something that might be sitting in your camp necessarily more than the organisers, if you can figure out what it would cost to do that, and it is something within the capabilities, it could be suggested to the organisers, hey, is this something we could do additionally? But yeah, I think adding in small and simple, like quick fixes to situations like that might be of assistance. And it's something that honestly could be cool simply to have around, completely unrelated to helping people who are less able-bodied. Like, I think it's kind of nice to have a sign before you get to the Greenweld area saying Greenweld encampment, with a little thing below next to, say, a cement pathway heading in that direction. But again, these kinds of things, there are always things which we don't necessarily know about, but it sounds like a suggestion that could be researched and maybe provided to the organisers once it's been researched.
No, definitely, that's a cool. I mean, again, just kind of touching on it again, even just having like signposts and stuff just in Passage in general, whether they've got braille on them or not, that just still sounds. Yeah, they would just, again, because we've got pavers, we're making streets, just having those signposts. Like I know.
Absolutely.
I know the team's gone for hell and high water to get like appropriate lanterns set up around the place at night. Having like basically lampposts with signs on them sounds awesome.
Absolutely. Stuff like that does sound like cool. It's small things. And I think the biggest part about this kind of stuff is, the first is education, which is simply people who know what they need saying, hey, I would like this, I need this. Because people who are able-bodied simply don't know about it. And the second is figuring out how to solve these problems in the long term. And if there's simple, easy, relatively cheap fixes you can put in place, you put them in place. And if they fail, you haven't wasted a lot of time and money.
Yep.
And you can figure out something better going forwards. But like where it is easy to change things to make them more accessible, like there's no reason not to. Like I absolutely, I know we already talked about it, but I absolutely love the fact that there's the additional briefing now included in with skirmishes and the like, saying this is what's like physically required to do it. That's reassuring to me that people who are worried can find out. So yeah, it makes me very proud of Perth LARP and proud of the organisers of Concord as well, that they are not just putting it on the too hard basket. They're not just going, there's not like, why do we need to worry about this kind of stuff? It affects so little people. And I think it speaks very well of them as human beings and as organisers.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I could not be more happier.
Okay, well, I don't see any more questions.
I think that's it, and we I mean, yeah, I think that's I think we have covered pretty much everything.
Not a problem. Well, once again, any other questions, feel free to hit me up. I'm always happy to help new players and old. Any questions, hit me up. Oh, and see you all at game.
Absolutely. See you all at game. Do not be afraid to ask questions. Do not be afraid to talk to people. Don't worry if you have issues talking to people. If your anxiety flares up, don't be afraid to head off and take a breath. We all get it. We all understand. We're all still going to be here waiting when you come back and you want to and you're ready to jump back in. We're all here for you.
Quite right.
So, with that, thank you so much, Stuart, for consenting to come on this little humble podcast.
Anytime, my friend. Happy to help.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening, whether present or in future. Now, as a slight update, I have completely lost the first episode of this podcast because Twitch has changed how long VODs are kept for. It got reduced from 30 days to 7. It has now been upped to 14. I have downloaded the second episode. I will download this one the second it's done, so I have it. My sincere apologies for that. It is what it is. I will likely do a recording at some point of me going through the first part of the Winds of the World and that changelog with all the clarifications and that, but I'll sort that out at a later time. I'm still looking into different places where I can upload these reliably. YouTube is definitely one of them. In fact, it's probably the front runner right now, but I'm still investigating different things. But other than that, listen to it if you have the time, when you have the time, if you want to. If you don't, it's all good. If you want to follow the channel to stay up to date with notifications or just to show your support, that's awesome. But any kind of liking, following, interacting, whatever, any support is support at the end of the day. Any feedback is feedback at the end of the day. And as long as this is something you enjoy, that's enough for me. So, thank you all so much, and I really do hope you have a lovely Sunday, a lovely day, lovely night, and a lovely summit. Bye.